arranged is kind of in phases. So in an earlier phase, the town was required to adopt a bylaw specific to illicit discharges and hookups. So non-stormwater discharges that people are discharging into this town's MS4 system. So the first bylaw in your agenda packet, that's the existing bylaw that addresses specifically that component of MS4. A later phase of the MS4 permit requires that towns adopt further regulations that regulate stormwater related runoff from development. So that's kind of where we are now, and that's why the town is looking to update that current bylaw with one that is more comprehensive, that addresses those other types of those direct stormwater discharges. So the second version in your packet is the draft bylaw of that newer version. The black text is, and feel free to jump in too, guys, but the town had kind of a template bylaw that they were provided by a consultant, I believe.
Environmental Partners.
And that was provided to SERPED to kind of review and make sure it complies with MS4 requirements and that it's including like kind of best practices. So the red language in that second bylaw is the new updates that SERPED is proposing. So that's kind of where we're at. And then I'll let Sarah talk more specifically about the bylaw edits that we're working on now, and then the feedback that we're looking to get from you guys. But that's a little bit of history.
May I pass around a packet of notes? This is not something that you have already. It's about goals, maps, land use, and it contains a mini version of the draft bylaw and the changes.
Sure.
Okay.
Do you want me to pass it?
So our task was to evaluate and strengthen your existing draft stormwater bylaw. And later on, we'll do the same for the stormwater regulations at a later stage. Our process involved making use of Mass Audubon's bylaw review tool, a spreadsheet tool that Danica and I worked on. We went through it line by line, section by section. We color coded and compared against the rubric of best practices. So, section 1 of the bylaw, purpose, we added stronger language to enforce the town's priorities of ensuring on-site treatment, no new discharges into the town's municipal stormwater drainage system, and effective long-term post-construction stormwater management. This satisfies 2.3.6 chapter of the MS4 permit. By the way, there's a new 2025 MS4 permit coming out, but nobody has any information about that because the EPA hearing has been postponed and delayed. Number 2, definitions. We added nature-based solutions and green infrastructure definitions. And GI is a type of NBS. We updated the definitions list to match recommendations set forth in the MS4 permit. We can skip authority. Well, actually, we should discuss authority, yes. Nate has some things to share with you about that. The question of whether the select board should be the stormwater authority and the building commissioner's role.
Yeah, so thanks for passing that on. So number one, I think that the authority in this context is the authority in which the bylaw is adopted. I know that the town planner mentioned that the authority should be the person that's overseeing it, but historically, when we look at the authority, it's what Mass General Law gives us the authority to adopt these. So I think that you actually have that correct in the draft.
Okay.
So, you know, if you want, while we're talking about authority in the other text, would be, you know, choices in which the town has to govern this. So, you know, a lot of times we miss catching stormwater as far as when it goes to site plan review with the planning board. Planning board would catch it. If it goes to Conservation Commission, they would catch stormwater. But there are a lot of one-offs that never even take a look at stormwater. And what this does is this will capture that. And so you get an A&R plan and you're doing significant work and it doesn't go in front of any board and committee. It just comes to me for a building permit. I don't have the authority to issue a stormwater permit. And this actually, the way it's currently written, gives me that authority under the select board. So we could stay with how this is drafted on the administration of the bylaw to be the select board or their designee. I would be appointed the agent for stormwater administration, but it would be under the select board. Other options could be the select board could designate the Conservation Commission. Conservation Commission is appointed by the select board, so it's a pretty natural fit. But the Conservation Commission by themselves, they don't have employees. The conservation agent actually reports through inspectional services, so I would caution that a little bit. So we'd want to make sure, in my opinion, to designate it to you know, staff to enforce. That way, any violations of the bylaw would also be enforceable by staff. Another option would be if you wanted the planning board to be the stormwater authority, which can happen, and then they could designate staff or just use a consultant to do the review. So, I mean, as we work through this, I think I would kind of keep that in the back of your mind, because, yeah, that's something we're going to need to address.
Okay, so can we make that list
Yeah.
cut to the chase? What are our options here?
So the options, the way it's currently drafted, is the select board,
Yep,
and the building commissioner is appointed the stormwater agent. That's one choice.
yep,
Select board being the stormwater authority, and you can designate whoever you want. You could designate a consultant, you could designate Conservation Commission, conservation agent. That's kind of like a all-in-one, but it's would be relative to conservation.
so as opposed to the building commissioner?
Yep.
Okay,
Or it could be the planning board.
or planning board.
But like,
Or their designee.
so the other part of it is to have the
53G. Yeah.
account instead of having someone in-house, and you wouldn't do it yourself. So
Nope.
you would go through peer review, planning board would, or whoever. Would
Yes.
Just still need to go through that.
So like Michelle said, and that's an answer that we're working to get right now, is 53G accounts is an account in which an applicant is applying for something for the town. It could be stormwater permits, it could be a definitive subdivision plan, conservation approval, something like that. The developer or the applicant would put money in a peer review account, 53G account, to have a third-party consultant come in and do the review, so you're not using staff time to do that. So, you know, if I were taking this under the custody of the select board, I would ask to make sure that we established a 53G account and got a consultant under contract to do these, both administratively and performance-based, where they were doing reviews of the plans and also doing inspections.
Okay, so stormwater activity is happening outside of our visibility. Like
Yeah.
it's happening, right? So if we're, the authority on this, and we have a designee, then basically that designee is going to be responsible to make sure that all of this is actually happening. So it sounds to me like there could be quite a few different triggers, right? Through the planning board, through the conservation, and through your permitting of A&Rs, so to speak. So how does that all tie in? So if it comes in through the planning board, does that then go to the designee?
So we would be covered under site plan review, because we already deal with stormwater through
Okay.
site plan review, same with conservation, they already deal with it if there's wetlands
Okay.
involved. So this would be for anything else now that has to conform to the stormwater bylaws. So that's why
Yeah.
it's, you know,
That's why it's here.
and then the other part of it is that Nate already has under him the illicit discharge, which should, he
Okay,
had pointed out, there's something he's already administering. If he's gonna do that, he should do this as well, so.
Madam Chair, now, Nate's doing illicit discharge, but what we were proposing here is having a 53G account, which people would pay into if they were doing discharge, that would be unfunded. That would be
It would be a
something that
peer
we
review
would,
of the stormwater.
so it would be peer reviewed, so the person would have to, they would be charged for it? Like, I'm trying to, yeah, okay.
No, that's exactly what would happen.
Okay.
So if you triggered in land disturbance or perceived discharge, the applicant or the owner, property owner would have to establish a 53G account, which is similar to what we do in all other approvals.
so is this just speaking for, these kind of offset stormwater issues that would go through you, or would this be for all stormwater?
No, this actually captures all of it.
All of it,
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah.
all right,
And- Yeah.
okay.
And this bylaw, the newly proposed bylaw would establish a permit structure, a new permitting structure for stormwater projects, which could include a fee for that permit that could potentially fund the 53G reviews, if it were designed in that way.
That would be a pretty substantial fee, or permit fee, I would think, right?
Yeah, it would
I mean,
probably cover staff time, so, you know, the permit fee itself would likely not go into 53G, because
Okay.
53G is a interest-bearing account, it gets returned to the applicant on
Right.
unused funds. So you would have the permit fee would be a source of revenue, and then you'd have your operational costs that would get appropriated at town meeting, that would be whatever staff time. So when we were setting those fees, we'd be cognizant of exactly what staff time it would take, because it's still gonna require management.
Right,
So you'd have to, you know, manage and coordinate consultant activities and making sure that the reporting gets in correctly and is shared. So, you know, sometimes we get hung up on authority having jurisdiction over stuff, but as long as we're all doing our job and sharing all the information with the other boards and committees, nothing really gets lost. And it really doesn't matter as long as you're doing it right.
right.
I mean, I know we've only got till 6:30, Madam Chair, and like, we're hung up on 3 out of like 9. I mean, reading the changes, this feels like yet more work that we don't have money coming from the state to do. So I would definitely propose, whatever we do, there's a 53G set up, so the people that are coming through this system are the ones that are funding the peer reviews and such.
1000%.
I don't want to see inspectional services tasked with all of this extra stuff, because we're already tight.
Yeah, Madam Chair, same comment, you know, whatever we're doing, if it's, the authority is going through the building inspector, it should be the authority for the building inspector to appoint it to agency X.
But I guess, do we understand at this point, even once you've handed off for the peer review, how much administrative and managerial work is there still to do inside the town's part of
Right.
it? I don't know.
This is another unfunded mandate. We really don't know how much extra work will happen, you know, until we get involved and start doing it. And, you know, that's another thing with the select board being the stormwater authority and having the ability to designate. So if the, you know, select board's office does get additional staff, and I know I've talked to the DPW director about passing all MS4 over to the, you know, town administrator and select board staff to manage, that may be another piece that goes there. So as long as the select board is the appointing authority, you know, I'm happy to help out in the beginning, and then maybe that morphs into something different if it becomes too cumbersome.
I don't know, just, to me, it just seems so, I was,
That is the way that
No,
it
that's,
is though, in
that's
some
fine. I
communities.
anticipate that coming to my office at some point, so we've talked about it, so not a huge deal.
Yeah, I mean, that is the way that it is in some in a lot of communities that, you know, there's even one person appointed from the select board in those communities to actually, you know, work on it I think Dayton was for the longest time. So it was,
You know, if this is done correctly and managed correctly, it probably won't be as cumbersome as what it looks like. You know, providing that we can use, providing the biggest piece of that is providing we can use 53G. So right now the draft language is silent with 53G, so we just got to make sure that that gets inserted in the bylaw. And if that happens, I don't see why we can't, you know, kind of farm it all out.
which one do you recommend?
I'm looking at it.
Is it possible for there to be multiple stormwater authorities? Would that make sense?
So Michelle and I talked about that briefly with the way site plan review. So site plan review is also, I guess, inspired or mandated through MS4 to start, you know, doing the site plan review. And in the early years, our site plan review had an exception. And the exception was in the event that the Conservation Commission was being petitioned for a notice of intent, you wouldn't have to go through site plan review through the planning board. And over the years, the planning board got into more architectural features, and this is across the Commonwealth. And so it made no more, it didn't make sense any longer to have conservation be this, you know, the site plan review, I guess, to some extent, you know, authority when the notice of intent was issued. So I mean, you bring up a good point, and if there was multiple authorities designated by the select board, so in the event that conservation was having a notice of intent in front of them and they were doing stormwater, they're going to do peer review anyway. And so I guess if we were all on the same page as far as who we were using for a peer review consultant, it's like planning board and conservation work very closely now. So if they both are seeing the same project, they both using the same peer review engineer, they're both getting the same information. So you're kind of working together there. So I see this probably happening the same way. It would just be the actual management. So I'm looking at it, okay, Conservation Commission, it's a, you know, a volunteer board. They don't have staff. I mean, they have an agent, but the agent's part-time. The agent answers through inspectional services, and really the same thing with the planning board. You know, we have a planner, but the planner actually reports to the town administrator. So, you know, how best to collect this information and manage it and you know, get it out there, probably is just starting with the select board as the stormwater authority, and then just having that language in their designee. And, you know, I think we got to button up the outside consultant piece with 53G and authorize the agent of the select board to also be able to enter into those agreements. So you don't have to run back to the select board every 5 minutes
Right.
and say, hey, we want to, you know, sign a proposal for, you know, environmental partners.
Right.
With somebody like that, Beals and Thomas, to do a peer review. Either, you know, the town administrator would be fine signing something like that, or, you know, whoever is designated by the board.
Yeah, I was kind of running that through my head too. I'm like, well, what are they gonna come to a select board meeting every 2 weeks? No, we need to move things, you know, needs to be a little bit more fluid.
Ideally, if the select board were that party, the authority having jurisdiction, it's nice too, because being that authority, a lot of times, you know, you might get a zoning complaint or something like that goes to the zoning board of appeals, or a general bylaw that doesn't have another authority and it's under chapter 249. In this instance, the select board could hear complaints regarding whoever they appointed to do the work. So, you know, whoever that was, if all of a sudden you had a neighbor complaint, they said, hey, look, you know, the building commissioner didn't do their job on stormwater. It could go back to the select board to, you know, make a final decision on that.
Oh, and that actually brings up one other point is, I guess it's under zoning bylaw, but it's really a general bylaw, so.
Okay.
That would be under general, not zoning.
One of the last things that, I mean, I had highlighted here was the fines in the back, because I know we had talked about making sure that we cleaned up our language a little bit on the fines.
It's $300 per day with no limit, correct?
Yeah, because you know, there's,
As long as we can enforce it.
it's the enforcement piece of it that I think we had talked about trying to draft possibly a bylaw that would, I guess, just maybe
Clean up.
clean up the rest of it so that it wouldn't have to be written into every single, you know, area where fines were identified. So that was,
Yeah, that was the same note I had. We actually gonna be able to enforce any
Yeah.
penalty.
I have town council reviewing that, and they should be giving us something that lets us enforce this and all the rest.
Madam
So-
Chair,
oh,
go
yeah.
ahead.
all I was just gonna say that, so you're taking all of this information into, consideration, for the bylaw. I know the planning board would hold, their required hearings, and then it would be, you know, coming to town meeting. So the plan is to have it for the annual town meeting?
In spring, yes.
Okay. Okay. Brian?
I just had a couple, I know we're not gonna have time, but since Serpent's here, I just thought I'd rattle them off and do with them as you may. So I'll save the most ridiculous one for last. At least in the package that we got, there's page 6 under exemptions, right? There's a whole lot of exemptions in here. Let me just read it real quick again to see if I missed it the first time. No, but I'm coming back to that. Past few years, there's been a significant rise of like power washing, soft washing companies that use detergents and bleach and such. I don't know if that's something that should be included, shouldn't be included. I see we've gone to the extent of including like individuals washing their cars, which could be similar chemicals. I just bring it up because it's something new in the last few years. But you look like you want to say
That
something
should
over there.
be- That should be added as an exemption.
I'm just bringing it up for awareness. Like I said, do with it as you wish.
This is a mini version. You mean
No, it's
how, like someone would hire someone to come power wash their house? Is that
It
what
happens
you
all the
mean?
time here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, so Brian, that's currently under illicit discharge. So
Okay.
remember here, we're talking primarily about what goes into storm drains. And so if you have illicit discharge, non-stormwater, like car wash or, washer machine or sump pumps, stuff like that, that's illicit discharge. We already actually have that bylaw.
Okay, because like on my street, all the drains go into Elder's Pond,
Yeah.
drinking water. So that's just one of, it was such a extensive list of exemptions, I thought it was worth bringing up to say, here's a new thing that maybe didn't exist years ago. The other one I had was this, what we already talked about, fines, like, let's just make sure we can enforce them. We've had other issues with bylaws in town where we can't enforce the fines. And then the ridiculous one was under pages 5 and 6. It calls out dog waste.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. We actually in this town, because we have a lot of horses, have back in October of 2015, a public health advisory that also calls out horse manure and needing to clean those up and being fined. So I don't know if it's worth changing that language to not be canine specific and just say domestic animal or, service animal instead of service dog, because then if you tie yourself in a service animal and suddenly iguanas are
get a
service
monkey.
animals the next day, let the feds deal with that definition.
Yeah, Brian, it should be pet waste in
Yeah.
general.
Right, so when I bring my pet camel down the street, like, hold me
exempt.
accountable.
You're exempt.
Yeah, I'm not a dog, so I'm okay. But those are the 3 I had, that's it. So,
Noted.
like I said, take them, throw them out, what do you want to do?
And are you suggesting that the car washing, power washing should not be exempted?
I'm not making a recommendation. It was just such a long list. I said, here's another thing that uses chemicals and runs down my driveway. That's all.
Okay. Anybody else from the select board? No? All right.
I talked about my dog poop, I'm good.
Well, thank you very much, all of you.
Danica too. And I know you stepped in, but she was pregnant, she went through maternity leave and came back and she got this done and I'm very happy.
Well, I have
Thank you.
Sarah and others on my team to thank for that.
Great, I appreciate it.
So as far as the timeframe goes, of when, we would be voting or making recommendations, on the warrant, articles for town meeting, just as far as like the dates and stuff, for having something, final draft, I
They
guess.
are aware of the next, planning board meeting and you said that they'd
Yeah.
have a draft ready.
Thursday, the 13th.
Okay.
They have their meeting in the evening and we'll have it to the group of officials by Wednesday evening.
Great.
you're holding the hearing on the 13th?
No, just, Thursday is our planning board meeting,
Okay.
so we'll
Okay.
have it. So then we'll schedule the hearings.
Gotcha. All right.
Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, the main reason they wanted to be here tonight is because they didn't want to designate the select board without the select board knowing. So they wanted to give a overview of exactly what this meant, so if we end up going that route, you know, the select board's all right with that.
So are we voting? Are you looking
We
for us to
weren't
vote
required
on
to vote on-
that?
We
Okay,
need council to look it over.
look
still.
it over.
Yeah.
But you will want a vote that, or can we
So-
just say it?
So we'll give the final version to town council to
Correct.
review, and then.
Right.
I mean,
But-
at some point, someone on the town's end just needs to decide who we want the authority to be. I
Right.
don't know if that has to be an official vote in a meeting or not, but.
Town
Yeah, it
meeting would
needs
the
to be
vote.
designated so we know.
Right. So I'll look
Write
to
it
our
up.
town administrator, who obviously, you know, would be, supporting this board, you know, for your recommendation or support for it coming here.
Okay.
Because we would be looking at you.
Yeah, I mean, the way the process is set up in this bylaw, it's pretty streamlined, I think, to go through Nate and then 53G. I think it makes sense for the select board to be the authority.
Okay. So on a future agenda, we're gonna have to, I mean, if it gets built into the bylaw,
The 53G.
the 53G, the select board would still, I mean, you'll have to let us know what the timing would be if it's supported through town meeting, the warrant article, and then the vote for the 53G account after, or if it would need to take place prior. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think 53G is like a vote we have to take, but yeah, we'll set everything else up.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate all the work.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That was some fun reading yesterday.
There was a
I
lot.
am still not an expert on stormwater, let me tell you.
I focused on the red areas.
Yeah, the dog book was amusing. It was great.
Like, how can I not bring that up?
Okay. Wow, it is 6:30 on the nose. So I'd like to invite our next, folks up for the agenda item number 6. Daniel Casari, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. How are you?
It's been a while.
Last time I was here was 2019. I was doing the math on my way here, but it's for the same project. I don't know how many of you weren't a select board yet. I think you were a secretary at the time, right?
Yeah, I was town coordinator at the time, I
Yeah,
believe.
now you're
yeah.
running the show, huh?
No, I
She's
wouldn't say
always
that,
running the show.
no. But really, it's nice to see you again. I know you had reached out to our
Yeah.
office, to our town administrator, and
Yeah, which one's Tracy?
Tracy, right here.
Tracy?
Craig McGee.
Oh, hi, you're the one I've been emailing with. Thank you. So my name's Daniel Casiri. I'm here to promote this idea I have for a monument in Lakeville. The stage that I'm at now is I have a partner, and his name is Tom Frederick. He couldn't be here tonight because he's teaching a class in Cape Cod, and the timing didn't work. But he's my partner in this project. He's a chief for the Pokanoket tribe, which is one of the tribes within the Wampanoag Confederation. And they love this idea of this monument for John Sassamon, who was murdered in Lakeville in 1675, depending on what calendar you use. And this murder trial that ensued after that sparked something called King Philip's War, which is the bloodiest war in American history if you go by how many people were living here at the time. It wiped out about 30% of the native population and about 10% of the English colonists over the course of about 15 or 16 months. And we want to commemorate this man is John Sassamon, who, first of all, he's a Lakeville resident, and his daughter is Betty, and that's why it's called Betty's Neck. They own that parcel of land at the time. And the Pokanoket community loves the idea. We have a sculptor. I drafted up some documents for a nonprofit so I can start accepting donations. I haven't filed the paperwork yet because it's kind of gonna depend on how the feel I get from you guys, whether you think this is something that you think is a benefit for the town. And I've contacted the sculptor. I've been to his studio with Tom Frederick, my partner, and this guy's the real deal. He's done monuments for people all over the world. When I was there, he was wrapping up something he was doing for Billy Joel for a project down on Long Island to commemorate oystermen, Oyster Bay, Long Island. And I also have a donor for the first part of the project. I haven't accepted any money yet. Again, kind of gonna hinge on how you all feel about this, but the way the process works with the sculpting is, I have a contract from the sculptor. It's $5,000 and we get what's called a maquette. And that's like basically a 12 to 20 inch statue. And I would, again, I'm not asking for any donations or anything. I can raise the money privately. But all I'm asking is if I accept this money from my donor, and if the sculptor creates this maquette, are you open to me just bringing it here at another meeting? And now we can talk about specifics, like how big it is. I don't even know where it's gonna go yet, so I don't know how big it can be. You don't wanna drop the Statue of Liberty or something like that in the middle of Lakeville. But I'm thinking something like 10 or 15 feet somewhere on public land. The Native community that I'm working with, they're not looking to reclaim land or anything like that. There's a lot of grant money with the CPC. I've talked to them. They said, essentially there's 3 factors on how you get CPC money. And it's something like for historical purposes, there's grant money for that. There's grant money for public parks. And there's one other factor I can't remember, but we qualify for that too. So we qualify on all 3 prongs. You only need 1. So I'm not looking for like town money or anything like that. It's CPC money, the money's there. I want it to go to me rather than another project. And it's gonna be private donations. All I'm asking is, if I bring in this monument, would you be open to seeing it? There's no obligation to you. Are you just open to seeing it? And if so, is there a particular public park where you think you'd be open to installing and erecting and creating this monument for the benefit of the town? Any questions?
Madam Chair?
If I can, I see that we have 2 members of our historic commission that I would love to invite up to the
Oh,
table.
I didn't even see Brian over there, yeah. Hi, how's it going? Have a seat, Brian.
Yep.
So we have Brian Reynolds and Nancy LaFave. Thank you very much for attending. And I know I have quite a few questions, and I think that the board probably does as well. And my understanding is that you've had an opportunity to meet with Daniel and have conversation?
We have a history with this topic. Prior to the 2003 anniversary, the 150th anniversary in the 1990s, we were pursuing the idea of a similar project because of the massive impact of John Sassoon's death on this area and the native population, the indigenous population, as well as the colonial, and the ending result with King Philip's War, and then the devastation after that. So we approached, at that time, it was probably called the Bureau of Indian Affairs or something like that in Boston. And what happened was they said no, that John Sassoon was a traitor, and that they would be very much opposed to us constructing or having a statue in his honor in Lakeville. So we didn't do anything. So in 2003, when we had the anniversary, we kind of didn't do anything with that project. And Dan came to us in 2018, and we talked about the experience we'd had back in the 90s, and we didn't really feel that maybe the atmosphere had changed any, or that the people felt any more positive about John. So we had a suggestion that maybe acknowledging the fact that the Wampanoags, or native indigenous people, were here for over 10,000 years, and the importance of Assawamsett Pond. We had originally thought at Shaw Park at the end of Highland Road would be a great site because there's such a beautiful vista there. You can still see some of the white banks, and all of the native use and the migratory birds and everything, it was just an important area. So we were talking about maybe something, not an actual person statue, but some kind of recognition, or where we would talk about the indigenous people and things like that. So we were in pursuit of information through 2019. And then of course, 2020, we had COVID and everything kind of fell off the map. But since that time, we've had our vice chair, Joan Gladue-Morton, has done some contacting, and she's talked to Mr. Mills and Mr. Wixon, who are part of the Mashpee Wampanoag. And they basically said, we don't do statues, meaning they don't do statues, and that they would like to come and talk to the Historical Commission about something that would be more appropriate. So there's that particular mindset that we're caught in, sort of in the middle of. Dan
By the way,
has,
that's my partner.
Dan
Tom
really,
Frederick.
you want,
Yeah, can we
I'll
make
move
space?
over. How about if I just move over? So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Both Dan and this gentleman have both talked at the Lakeville Historical Society programs for us in last year, 24. So right now, that's the position of the commission, is that we need more information, and we want to feel that everybody's on board with this. And it's not just our decision, but it would be sort of a group decision. And then the final decision would probably rest with the Board of Selectmen.
Could you
Select
repeat,
board.
now that my partner's here, would you mind repeating some of that?
Oh,
so
okay.
we can hear it?
In the 1990s, we attempted to do something similar, and we went to what at that time might have been called the Bureau of Indian Affairs, but it's called something else now. And they basically said to us that John Sassaman was considered to be a traitor, and that they would not support us in any recognition of him. So we didn't do anything for the 2003 anniversary. Since that time, we've tried to gather information from other people, and just most recently, our vice chair, Joan Gladue-Morton, has talked to two gentlemen, Mr. Mills and Mr. I think it's Wixon.
Yes.
And they both said that they're not interested in doing statues. They don't do statues, is what the comment was. And they would like to come and talk to the Historical Commission about something, so how we could appropriately recognize the whole Wampanoag Nation, perhaps, or something like that. So that's just where we are as a commission. We are meeting in March, third Wednesday, and that's going to be on our agenda. And hopefully we will, if the gentlemen are not available to come that date, that we would have a special meeting, hopefully no later than April.
Leah, you had something, I'm sorry.
So in this day and age where, every few months you hear another story about another statue getting pulled down somewhere across the country, I mean, how can we actually be sure of the information, especially if the previous Bureau of Indian Affairs back in the 90s felt as though he was a traitor, and now Daniel and Tom are saying, and we know the stories too, but I wouldn't want anything erected unless we were sure. How do we know it's not a he said, she said? How do we know?
Right, and we would look, and to substantiate any point of view, we would want letters, signed letters, not just hearsay. That's why we want to have the meeting and find out just what the position is. Because although I think, I know that Dan has really enjoyed the research and all the information that he's been able to share about John Sassaman. As a person whose ancestors were here, but not in Plymouth area, they felt that he was not a traitor. So, I mean, there's two cultures with opposing points of view. And the Historical Commission tries very hard to walk, not so much the center line, but to be able to give both credit and credence to both opinions based on the fact that we don't know how the mindset was. We can project, but we don't really know what it was like to be a colonial person or to be an indigenous person living here in the early 1700s, 1600s and 1700s here.
Yeah.
So for that reason, we want to make sure that before anything is approved, that we know what we're doing. And for the same reason that you're saying.
I don't know if Daniel recognizes me, but.
I recognize you now, yeah.
So
You used
we.
to run the dry cleaner.
But I know he's very thorough. I know, some of the things you used to do back in the day. I was like, wow, he puts in so much time into everything he's doing. But that's my biggest concern is if we're going to, put up, would we call it a memorial or a statue or a.
I mean, there's so much history here in Lakeville, and we hear it, through all conversations with, potential developments or, areas of land. And, I'd like for us to do right by Lakeville. And I know we're already, kind of a known area down here, but there's some deeper history that I think, obviously there's some passion for it to get it recognized. So,
May I respond to some of these comments? Oh, so thus far, or am I supposed to wait?
well, I would like the board
Okay.
to weigh in for what we've heard so far.
Okay.
We can do that.
I have stuff. I mean, I would say, even in the first few phases, I mean, once you've got your paperwork filed, let me know, I'll donate. I think regardless if somebody was a trader or not a trader, for us to figure out now is going to be near impossible, but it can still help to tell the overall story of what happened in this area. I grew up in Rainham. King Philip's War was something that we were all taught back there. I don't know if the history is accurate or not, but they used to say that, the Iron Forge was in, Taunton/Rainham, who basically had a agreement with the tribe to say if we would fix their weapons, they would not slaughter our people. Right, so to hear some of these names come in the packet, I was like, wait a minute, where do I remember this from? Oh, when I was like, fourth grade learning about this stuff the first time. So I think it's a great opportunity to explore personally. I can never remember which parks in this town are operated by the Parks Commission or the Historical Society. So, I mean, I look at something like Tamarack Park as something that we've kind of neglected over the years, haven't really put any money into it, and maybe there's a larger project that's possible there.
Kayak launch.
Yes, kayak launch, remember Candida, I very much like, but I love the idea, and, even if it's just pursuing more to figure out, we don't really have much like this in town. We celebrate, the tavern and some other things, but there's nothing deeper, really, unless you happen to glance going down, 105 in the woods, but I'm in. Let's at least look at it. There's no harm in looking.
To echo off some of Member Day's sentiments, we don't have like a center of town. We don't have things where it's attractions, where there's things to be looking at. A lot of our attractions are just the scenery, and looking at, scenery only goes so far. There should be something to be said for it. I think a statue is a lovely idea. I don't know that we'll ever get any full agreement on what role he played, and depending on where you sit, it's always going to look different. But I think if we can find out, what it costs and some of the other ancillary things, I don't see that anything really prohibits that. I think it's slightly controversial, but we shouldn't sway away from things just for the fact that some people might not like them. So I would love to obviously defer to everyone in the historical as they come up with what they think the best solution was for the town, as they're the reason we're able to talk about historical stuff and have it. They've got it codified and they've got a better grasp on it.
Well, we're moving forward towards 2028, which is our 175th, since we weren't successful prior to 2003. Perhaps this would be something that we could work jointly with.
And then for it to be part of a larger project, maybe something that can go right along with something else. I hate that we do things ad hoc a lot of times. We do things when the opportunity comes up and we're not really thinking systematically or an overall venture. Some more planning would go a long way to making some things a little bit more cohesive in town. That's my comments.
Bernard, did you have something?
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I was campaigning to have a golf course purchased and turned into a park, and I was going to name it after John Sassman. So I dealt with some of these same people. I had some of the same conversations. There was the idea that he was a traitor, which I think makes this better as an art installation than a statue of recognition, because he was a traitor in some ways, because if he hadn't alerted the colonists, the Native Americans would have killed everybody. They would have won. But because he informed them and he was able to be stopped, we're here today. So I think if you're going to do it, knowing that there's contention, you have an opportunity to do it as a thought-provoking art installation, as, you know, we are here today having these conversations and building it up as we did because this man did go back on his people. And he wasn't raised with the natives, he was in an orphanage, you know, the history's all here. So in some ways he was a traitor, but in other ways he wasn't. So it's a very thought-provoking piece on this life and how life would be much different if it went a different way. I think 10 to 15 feet is a bit much. I think 6 to 7, and the two places I could see it fitting in best would be on Town Hall lawn looking over Assawamsett Pond, or the old library, which is currently an annex for the town hall, because we have so many art festivals downtown, downtown, that people would actually be walking on the sidewalks and, you know, take time to see it and look at it. Other places, if you put it in a park where they have sports, I'm afraid it might get defiled or, you know, gum on it and stuff. So I think somewhere that's not necessarily an active park, but a place that people will see it would probably be the best place for it.
If I may, Madam Chair, my thought of the tamarack was, if memory is correct, wasn't he supposedly found under the ice at Assawamsett Pond itself?
Yeah.
So kind of overlooking that area.
Right.
Town Hall would do the same thing.
Okay, so just, I know you have a few comments too, but I don't want to lose sight that we have some energy for, you know, to do something, you know, for the history of Lakeville. So I think you have consensus of the board to pursue and come back with something that, you know, we can address. So.
Madam Chair, the only thing before Daniel responds is if maybe you guys can just keep Andrew in mind, that way, if there's gonna be a big meeting, you can let him know, and I watch so many town meetings, sometimes not until a couple of weeks after they've happened, so I'd really like to just be a part of the information process gathering.
Because we're trying to have information funnel through the town administrator's office as the conduit to all boards, committees, and commissions. And so I'll share that message here as well. So go ahead, please.
Leah, I didn't know your full name was Evangelia.
It is, yes.
The name of the monument is going to be Kenawan, which is an Algonquin word that Tom taught me, and it means all of us. John Sassamon was a Native American who was a praying Indian, which means he was Christianized, and he helped translate the Bible into Algonquin. And I want to just explain some of the specifics of how we've told our sculptor to sculpt this thing. He's going to have his feathers pointing down opposed to pointing up. When the natives would wear the feathers up, it meant it was time for war. When they wore it down, it meant they come in peace. And John Sassamon was a man of peace by trade. He often served as a translator between the English and the Indians. And he's going to be holding a pipe and his translation of the Bible to represent, this is a man of two worlds. This is a man who would often preach sermons as Tom has taught me, about Kennewan. We are all one. We are all one. This is where this is the idea, this is the direction we're going in this thing, with this thing. Ideally, and again, it's so early, but ideally, we want him to be standing on some kind of a footing that has like probably 8 sides on the footing. And we'll have reliefs on each of the 8 sides of the different people that tell the story, including Josiah Winslow, who was the governor at the time, and King Philip, who was the chief at the time, and a bunch of others. We'll let you know when we get closer. This is an opportunity for people to come and tell whatever story they want. I'm all about free speech. This is going to be that. I instinctively envisioned it being near footpaths, as Selectman Donahue was talking about. That was exactly what I personally had envisioned. We can get more into the weeds as we get closer, and we got a couple surprises when you actually see this thing. The donor is Lakeville Christian Fellowship, which is the church my dad is the pastor of. And as I said, there's no obligation to anybody. I just wanted to get a sense of whether you were interested in seeing this thing. And I'm really excited to hear that at least most of you are. Did you want to add anything about Sassamon being a traitor?
I would love to. To understand the dynamics of what was happening back in early New England. We even go as far back as Massasoit. And the spirit of compassion was what enabled the Pilgrims to land. And it was because of the group himself that he witnessed, men, women, and children, that decided to help them during that first winter. With that being said, like Sassamon, Massasoit also was seen as a betrayer to allowing strangers to come onto the land, which ultimately led to its wars and everything like that. So the concept of betrayal of the people is well known. I feel that Sassamon faced the same situation, learning to live in 2 worlds and being a mediator, meaning that you can see the issues from both sides and both perspectives. With that being said, I think that the focus of unification of people and standing up for what you believe in, even in spite of the circumstances, ultimately it's about doing the right thing that's within your heart, giving the information that you have at that time. You may pay the price for that decision, but the story of Kennewan and how we still had a group of native and non-native people coming together to support an ideal of helping one another, being compassionate. I think that this story can be found in all of us. How many decisions have we made that weren't necessarily the best ones? But at the same particular point, is it fair for organizations like the Bureau of Indian Affairs or even the Commission to see one side of it? I think that as Native people, I'm not interested in one side of a story. I'm interested in the full story, because then we're embodying and embracing the concept that it's all of us. We have the opportunity of continuing to look back at look what you've done, or we can look at it as an opportunity saying, look at where we're at. And what do we as human beings wish to say forward? And as a descendant of John Sassamon, I like to believe that the very principle of what I stand for, I believe he did as well. Do I see the best of decisions? No. Do I see a spirit that was led by compassion? Absolutely. And the fact that he was able to embrace Christianity as well as traditional Native ways showed that he was empathetic to the duality of existing in 2 worlds. So I certainly see this as an opportunity for us as people to move forward. And perhaps traitor or mediator is the message. that there will always be different perspectives from the native side as well as non-native peoples. But yet this is an opportunity to see all the different angles of different positions and realize that at the end of the day, it's not where we came from, it's where we're facing and where we're going. And so the positions that we talked about earlier, facing the Royal Wampanoag and Betty's Neck, really is an opportunity for us to come together as Kennewan people, a story of all people, that no one pain is greater than anyone else's. We all know what pain is, we all know what oppression is, we all know what suffering is. But I like to believe in this world that we're fighting for human rights, not Native American rights, not gay and lesbian rights, not black, white, red, yellow, whatever. We're fighting to be treated as human beings. Let's make that the point. Again, disparities exist. Some people have better opportunities at achieving the rights that are necessary, and some don't even have the opportunity. But to be able to acknowledge that at least we're trying, and that we recognize Kennewan, all of us, is a beautiful concept.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
And Lakeville is in a unique position. It has this incredible story that was really the pivot of American history. And 350 years, I think the culture can handle this conversation. And I think it's time.
How, what are we looking for time frame that you would be coming back?
You ever deal with artists before? let me
Yeah, I've
talk
got
to
that
my...
left brain too, so yeah, I get it.
His name's Boccaccio. You want your sculptor to be named Boccaccio, but he's a little eccentric. Let me email him tomorrow, tell him how this meeting went, and I will email Tracy, is that okay? And I'll
Sure.
kind of give you guys an idea of what he says,
Yeah,
and
sure.
whatever he says, assume it's gonna be twice as
He can
long.
watch, he can watch too, I'm
Okay,
sure, you know.
okay.
Just point him in the direction of, you know, LakeCAM.
He is an incredible artist, but he is an artist, so time is
Okay.
Just
No, I
a
was
fa-
just
just a-
curious to, you know, kind of see, but,
Would you
yeah, it
like
looks
us
like we have a little
come
work
back
to do,
you
right?
in April?
Sure.
That would give us some time to talk and have.
April 25, 26.
the monument won't, that little monument won't be ready by then, you know that,
Right,
right?
No,
right,
Okay.
but-
no, I think that just to go through the process that the commission needs to go through and
Okay.
talk to people sometime in April, maybe towards the end of April
Sure.
of 2025
Okay.
this year instead. Although we love history, we don't like to spread it out if we can get things under.
So does it make sense for him to
discussion.
wait until historical is completed their part? Is that what I'm hearing perhaps, or?
I would think so, but just to get all the information in one fell swoop instead of having it coming in.
Right, as an artist, I mean, it's not that he's gonna start today, but at least you can put him on alert.
Okay.
All
But we
right.
would try to make arrangements to have something happen in April with the people that we would need to talk to and
Okay.
find out where we stand in terms of that.
Okay.
Because we're looking at both sides. We're looking at the indigenous side and we're looking at the other side. And we need to make sure that we have the right kind of input to make a recommendation to the select board.
All right. Sounds
And
great.
my apologies, I did not introduce myself personally. It's Chief Wananamwal Tom Frederick of the Chappaquiddick Pokanoket Nation. And we are willing and here to work with you, and any information we can provide. As a Lakeville resident, we are here. So anything we can do to help or to help facilitate, we're more than happy to do so.
Okay. And Daniel, if you wouldn't mind, and Tom working
Yes.
through Tracy so she has your title
Yes,
accurate for the record.
yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming out. As a learning to be a history buff, especially with Lakeville, I appreciated the reading.
Take care, Lorraine.
And we
Thank you.
always like it when people are interested in history.
Right, good to see you. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you soon.
Yes.
Not very graceful.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. Okay, off to agenda item number 7. I know did we not set that clock?
No, I looked over and I was like.
Okay, this happened to me, I think.
Time was
years
standing-
past, right in the
time was
fall.
standing
And then- Yeah, okay. Would you please come back to the table? I really thought I was seeing things, I'm having that moment
I
of,
saw you looking at the
but I
clock.
thought it was vertigo and awful, awful, awful.
I had the same thing earlier.
It's what happens when some of you are, taught analytically, right? Analog, and then digitally, so when you look at one and look at the other, it just, your brain just kind of goes into a little mush, so. Okay, so we are, welcome back. So we had brought this, for discussion at our last select board meeting. And Andrew, if you wouldn't mind, could you kind of give us a little synopsis and kind of where we are right now?
Yeah, so, Rhino came, to the board a few weeks ago, looking for an expression of interest to the Community One-Stop program. I believe the first, ask would be just the, cleanup of the landfill property. And so the board had, a lot of different questions about various liability, the process that's needed, what goes into an expression of interest. We talked about fiscal analysis on the property, what an MOU would look like, outlining this kind of, deal. I guess what the process would be. So, we've kind of gone over some of the pros and cons, but we can certainly go over that probably after their presentation.
Okay, all right.
Great. Well, for the record, John O'Leary with Rhino Capital. I hope to be as graceful as our last group that was up here. But we, as Andrew sort of mentioned, sort of following up on what we had discussed 2 weeks ago, provided several different pieces of material, a draft memorandum of understanding, a draft of the expression of interest, some supporting information on some past awards and grants that have been given out in the last few years, and then also supplied the 3 fiscal impact studies that were performed last year. We did put together a presentation for the board that just sort of highlights and kind of hits on the big elements of those various different pieces of information. I'm happy to kind of go through that if we think that's helpful. Or otherwise just sort of jump into kind of a back and forth conversation. If you guys had the time to review the material, I'll take your lead. Like I said, I'm happy to kind of walk through what we presented or what we shared. But.
What's the pleasure of the board this evening?
I have a question already on this page before we get to the presentation.
Sure. Can you choose it?
First.
It's the brownfield grant.
Yes.
Structure.
So on the back for project description, it says cleanup of a publicly owned brownfield site. Can we just clarify that?
Yeah, so that will be a drop-down menu in the, when you go online and submit the form. Okay. And that's the only option to select. Otherwise, if you say privately owned land, you'd be automatically ineligible.
Disqualified.
So I actually pushed back and said, how did I express it? I didn't like publicly owned, but I was told that that's just the drop-down menu selection, so.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, just to follow up, Brenna, on the publicly owned part, the MOU that they're referencing would seek for the town of Lakeville to take care and custody of the parcel of land to clean it up in order to get the brownfields grant. So they're basically, for all intents and purposes, asking us to temporarily buy the parcel to get the grant funding. So that's to the drop down that you're asking, it would be in that, if that was something the board was interested in, that would be relevant, because that's the only way it gets done, because a privately owned company cannot apply for the brownfields.
Thank you.
Just as a one clarification item there, if I may.
Sure.
It's our intention that we would still own the land. It was the town would have an exclusive easement over that portion of the land. And we understand that that is sort of contrary to that publicly owned piece. And so that's something that we're trying to work through with Mass Development directly to ensure that exclusive easement access does consider you to be eligible for that publicly owned category. So that's something that we're trying to navigate. It's not our intention to have the town purchase and own in fee any of the land that's currently there.
No, but if we do have care and custody, and anyone can feel free to, that obligates us for 30 years. Anything that goes wrong, when the cleanup is happening, if we have care and custody of the parcel.
Yeah, that's my understanding of the mass development contract. Have you guys heard anything different than that?
I haven't seen that in writing anywhere. If that's the case, we can look into it. Like I said, we're having active conversations with them to understand how we can be eligible for this. And again, it's not our intention. We want to own the land. We don't, it's not our goal to have a town own
Understood.
the land or to be responsible for the land. So if that is the case, then that's something that we'll want to work around and address for sure.
Yeah, because my understanding was, once the care and custody happened, whoever was in charge or had care and custody at the time of the remediation would be basically liable for it.
Okay.
For 30 years.
Even if that care and custody was to transfer after.
Backwards.
So it's whoever was in ownership of the property, even though you'd be the owner, we would still have that, I guess, oversight for that area. So we would still be considered, on that. And that was, I think, one of the things that we had indicated that, the no liability, to the town. Like was our primary, concern. But
One question, if I may. We were also curious, after going back and looking at some of the programs out there, was there any attempt at, and I'm showing ignorance of the process here, was there any attempt at applying at the federal level, or are you required to go through mass development because they kind of divvy out the money at the state level?
So we've looked at federal brownfield programs, tax credits and the like. The landfill specifically is considered part of the solid waste division, not the brownfield division by the federal regulations. So for instance, if we were to pursue a brownfield tax credit or to finance the removal of the landfill, it wouldn't count.
On the federal program.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of faith in the federal funds available right now. We're gonna, for other portions of the project, we do intend to pursue low-income housing tax credits or explore different federal programs. We just don't have a high degree of certainty and confidence in those.
Because there was confusion, because we were looking, I was like, well, wait a minute, it looks like private entities can apply federal, but then mass development has this very specific language that says nonprofits only, so we're like, what's going on? So the definition of the solid waste helps us understand that part at least.
Yeah, and I had a consultant dig up that language, so I can pull that court case that it's referenced in.
That's right.
okay. Anybody else? So that was our big understanding, was just as the town will not, and I mean, obviously we'd have to vote on that, but there is absolutely no interest that we would put ourselves in any position today or 30 years down the road, because we were saying that we probably, some of us might not be here. So but the project, as you know, we've been in support of the project. And what you've presented, and then we come into this, situation where we do know that this is a critical piece to the whole puzzle. And, we knew from the beginning that this was something that you wanted to make sure got addressed. So, where are we now? I think that there's a little bit more work that we still need to
Madam Chair,
look at.
can I just jump in? And I might be misremembering, so keep me honest. Also for projects where a town is advocating, just like that, they're usually projects that have the greater good, meaning it's not just for that parcel. It's something like in the roadway or something with a waterway or something like that as well. So just as an aside, a lot of these things that people would advocate for the brownfields, it would require a public good and not just a good for one entity.
Right. And I think that we've heard that message, you know, through other conversations, not, you know, just with the hospital project, but, that would be for a municipal enhancement. So.
Actually, Madam Chair, I think I do have a question. So I know back in 22, when we were, trying to move the rezoning forward for the warehouse, I had done a lot of looking into, I won't even call it research, just looking into the actual award amounts. And it seemed to me that there weren't a massive quantity of like the big money, the $2 million. A lot of the awards at the time were $500,000. I mean, I know money's money and any money is that you can get is good money, but I don't know if, you know, that's a make or break.
That would, that's something that we are pushing very hard on to understand what is the probability that we get deemed what Mass Development calls a priority project, which allows up to a $2 million award. We are doing a lot of, we're having a lot of conversations, I should say, with folks at Mass Development to ensure that our project gets put into that category. Ultimately, it will be up to the powers that be at Mass Dev that decide whether or not we're considered a project, or this is considered a priority project. We're going to push to make sure and do everything in our power to make sure that it is. But you are correct. Typical awards range between $200,000 to $250,000 for construction-related remediation. So we would be asking to sort of go above and beyond. So that's something that we have taken on the responsibility of making sure that we're driving this home and stress how important this is.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I could. Have you, when you're working with Mass Development, have you given them, and I'm sure you have, and I'm just asking out of curiosity, have you given them the whole story that the state dumped it? And
Yes.
the state put no conditions on it?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then the state sold it to someone for a dollar?
Yeah, we've given them the whole story, and some of the feedback we've received is, oh, it's this project again.
That's because I called 50 million times
Yeah.
back in 2019.
Yeah, I think, and Chair, or Selectman Day, this is it's to a point that you had mentioned at our last meeting. We can now say to them with confidence that this project is real, that this project has permits. We have a real viable plan to go forward here with local approvals in hand, with our MEPA approval completed. We're on, we're closing in on getting our discharge permit, water quality certification, Army Corps of Engineers. Like, we are on the doorstep of getting this done. And the hurdle that we're facing is just, we don't have the financial ability to start to demo and remediate.
Yeah, and speaking for myself, if it wasn't in any way, shape, or form obligating or putting a liability on the town, I would feel good about saying, yes, I would put my support behind it.
Yeah.
But with any possibility, now or in 30 years of any liability, it becomes a question of responsibility to the people of Lakeville.
100%, and we'll do our homework there to ensure that concern, we either get to the bottom of it to make sure that that's the case with this, and try to structure it in a way such that that's protected. We do not want the town to feel like that they're obligated to do anything more than just be the applicant to this process. So we understand the concern, we hear the concern. we'll do some homework and get back to you with more feedback.
Okay, and through that, obviously work through the town administrator, we'll get back on the agenda, and, if we have any further, questions, we'll work through our town administrator, so that he can relay that information back to you.
May I share one other concern? This other concern is far and away, way beyond, less than public health and liability, but I apologize, but I don't remember at our last meeting if we got a clear answer on, is this, request 1 of 5 or 1 of 1? Because the thing that we then have to consider is, if we put our names out there and say, we're gonna apply on your behalf to get this money, right? The state then starts to look at, well, how much have we divvied out to towns?
Mm-hmm.
And if this is over a period of number of years, there is at least a concern that Lakeville is going to be looked at and say, well, we already gave them 2 million this year and 3 million this year for this. So yeah, they're not going to get their ADA grant. They're not going to get their community compact grant. So there's that additional risk of like significant funding sources disappearing for years that we are not going to get. And it's not something I can really quantify to say, is it $1, is it $10, is it $10 million? But it is a concern. I don't know that we know how to put a number on it.
We have to ask that question, because I believe I brought that up, because that was a concern of mine too.
Being 1 year versus multiple years of.
Right, because if the state, the advice that we've gotten so far is if the state commits, they'll probably want to see it through, right? And not say like, we gave you the first year, now we're going to back out or whatever. So then that puts us in the position of like, what can we get for the next few years from the state if they're prioritizing a priority project in our town already? I don't know. It's an unknown, but it's something I think we need to at least think about. I mean, we're running a tight ship budget-wise as it is, and we are dearly relying on state and federal funding. To see any of that evaporate.
So idea just popped in my head.
Look out.
I know, I'm sorry, everybody. But if we were to obligate ourselves in that way, and it would preclude us for going for any funding, would your team be interested in an MOU of some funding, kind of a backwards funding? Like, say we have a $200,000 project and you've got $2 million of brownfields. Would you be able to support something like that?
So I think for the brownfield piece specifically, that dollar amount has to go towards that project, so you can't shift it around.
But for future projects that are related to,
I think we would certainly entertain having that conversation. We'd like to put a figure to it rather than it being a revolving door. But if that's something that becomes part of the conversation.
Just a thought is to, if we get blocked out and we have needs, not all of the needs, obviously, but if we have needs.
The challenge is the state is not necessarily going to say why you didn't get it. Right, like.
Yeah, there'll be,
It's a challenge.
but there'll be signs.
All down the road.
Yeah, there'll be signs. They'll be like, not this time. You got enough.
Mr. Kavicki?
Yes.
Are you here, with our development group, or?
No.
Are you here as a resident?
As a resident. You keep talking about a parcel, right? And people out there in the TV land, a parcel, what's going on? And shouldn't you identify it as Lakeville Hospital? Is it Lakeville Hospital?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay, so what is the problem that we should let the people out there, in a brief, is they couldn't do the project, they don't have enough money. Is that the case?
Were you able to watch our meeting last?
No.
Because we received a presentation, from the folks here, and just looking for, I don't want to say assistance, but I'll say assistance, with some opportunity to help with the cleanup of the site, of that one particular area, so.
But the company was supposed to do that. Now, do we have a bond, okay, in case they fail, they say, like they're saying now, I believe, that they don't have the money, okay? So do we have a bond?
Well, I think that you're asking some good questions, and I think that this is all part of the dialogue that we're exchanging at this moment. So we have not come to a conclusion at this time. We're still in the process. But I can assure you that your, select board that's sitting here this evening is looking out for the town of Lakeville.
But, do they have a bond in case they can't produce?
We haven't gotten to this conversation
Yeah.
yet.
Okay, all right, I
At the
understand
moment,
that, but
no.
in the future,
Would a bond be a requirement?
yeah, before we do anything, give them any kind of money or any kind of agreement
Yeah.
that they produce a bond, and we know exactly what they want to do, okay? Exactly, okay? And that they perform exactly what they say they're going to do. Now, they can't perform. Now, and I can't believe you people haven't come up with a bond, but that's the way it is. That's the way you do business here, okay?
We don't have a bond, I'm sorry.
But you should have had a bond.
We have no opportunity to have a bond. The town never owned it. The town never had any say
No,
over
you
it.
misunderstand me. That they're gonna do the work, they has to produce a bond, that they're gonna do the development, right? And they can't do the development because they don't have the money. So if they had a bond, that we could get the work done, you understand?
I understand, but that opportunity for that kind of partnership hasn't arisen yet. So maybe that is part of the next conversation
Okay.
as we talk about this, because they're not looking for town money, they're looking for state money. So they're looking for the town to apply for state money on their behalf.
Okay, but before that, they weren't looking for state money, correct?
You have to ask them.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm talking to you, okay?
I can't speak
Well,
on
you
their
can, you
behalf.
can speak through me.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not used to this, right? The other thing is the taxes paid on the property,
Yes,
they are 100% paid on the property.
yes.
Okay, that's a big plus, okay? But, I won't, dwell on it, but if you, have anybody do any work for the town, you produce a bond. They have to produce a bond, okay? And the program, if they're gonna build 10 houses, they're gonna build 10 houses, period. They're not gonna change it, okay? And that's what the bond is, to make sure they build 10 houses. Now, they can't produce the money, okay, to do what they said they were gonna do, okay? So,
Right, and I think that, you know, I can support what you're saying, because I know with the subdivision, I know that the rules are, you know, in place for that, and the planning board does seek, you know, that type of support, from the ownership or the participant or the developer. But in this case, this particular case, Rhino owns the property, Rhino has a plan for the property. They just came in front of us, to see if we could work toward, trying to assist with some state funding. And at this point, we have made no decisions, but they have heard our concerns, and we do support your concerns too. But we haven't gotten to that stage of having that conversation.
Madam Chairman, I hope you don't support the funding for them, okay? They came to you and said they were gonna do this, okay, and they can't do it, okay? So I hope you don't, support, funding for them, okay?
Right, it wouldn't, right, I understand what you're saying, so I do thank you.
Because you creating a problem for the taxpayers, and, and now that they can't produce what they said they were gonna do, that everything has to change. All the plans have to change. No 200, no, we don't want 200 houses or 200 apartment buildings, right? Or apartments, right? We don't want that.
Well, we haven't gotten to that place yet, and I think that we just need to take this as it's coming along, because I don't want to get too far ahead of where we are right now. They're still planning on moving forward with their project, but we have a situation where there could be, where they wouldn't be able to move forward with their project. So
Well,
the town has not, to the best of my knowledge, we're not financially involved in this at all. This is strictly their project.
And that's why we had no opportunity to do a bond of any sort.
You're not doing the bond, they're doing the bond,
No,
in
so
case they fail.
for example,
What?
Please, Mr. Kavicki, what it is, to clean up the property, it's gonna cost about $2 million. There are state grants
Just one area.
to specifically help clean up properties. but you can't apply for it unless you're the municipality. So they're asking us if we'd be willing to co-sign on it, so the state would help clean up using state funds. So it's not the taxpayers, it's not us, but the problem is, if they apply through us and we get the money, we might not be able to get funding for other projects.
Okay.
So at the moment, no decision has been made. We're just investigating if it's something that's
Okay, well,
worthwhile.
please don't give them the,
We're not giving them a dime,
Okay.
Mr. Kavicki. It's the
Because
state.
They dropped the ball, and who say they're not gonna drop the ball after they get the money for the state?
I don't wanna keep this, I don't wanna cut you off, but I don't wanna put any negative,
Oh, yeah,
on
okay,
any
sure.
of this, so.
But to give precedent, Madam Chair, like when the town does have an opportunity to be part of the transaction, when the old police station was sold, there was a performance bond in place to ensure it was demolished within a period of time, or else the town would have gotten money. So there is precedent to performance bonds in this town. They do happen. And I believe way back when the warehouse was under consideration, I thought the select board had negotiated a developer agreement or MOU with Rhino before that all
For
went
a
sideways.
fire truck.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then, obviously, things changed and they weren't allowed to move forward that project. That
And
was,
I do think the planning board at some point, I don't know if it was during the 43G permitting process, had suggested a performance bond. So performance bonds isn't something that are completely, foreign to us. It's just right now we're at a very early place with this, so.
What do you mean by foreign to us? What's that?
Well,
mean?
because we've done them in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, I'm asking for him to have the bond, not us.
Right.
Right.
Oh, we would not do
Okay.
that.
You're
All these
making
instances.
breakfast and you're talking about dinner. You're way too far in the process right now.
One other thing, and I'll
Yeah.
leave you,
Okay.
right? I promise. Now, we need to downsize the scale because we have the cards right now. We have the cards, okay? So I don't want a big building for 200 people, right? I want a small development, and as far as the landfill, we'll just leave it the way it is, right? If you don't touch it, and, because you're gonna downsize the area, okay? Now, maybe Andrew is a pretty smart guy, maybe he can give a little bit light on it. Can we just leave that landfill there and downsize the houses, put maybe only 10 houses there?
I think Rhino's has a permit for all the activity on the site, so, through 40B. So I don't think even if we wanted to, we couldn't possibly change their plan.
it's a
I would just-
private project.
Yeah, if I may, just a couple of comments. So as it relates to the performance bond will be a portion of our building permit. So until we apply for a building permit, we will not be required to post a performance bond. So far, we have not pulled a building permit for any portion of either the previous development or this current development. Performance bond will be a portion of a building permit issuance. As it relates to downsizing the project, if we were to be downsizing the project, we likely would be coming back asking for more money than we already are. The density supports the demolition. So without density, we can't support the cost of demolishing the buildings and cleaning up the site.
Yeah, but we're not giving you more money, okay? We're not giving you more money. I'm asking the board not to approve the money, okay?
Okay.
It's just let the place be.
So we're going on to the next phase, but please watch our last meeting so you can understand exactly what they, had come in front of us for, so you're well-versed, I guess, in what we've already stated. You attended this evening. Hopefully, we'll see you back in the next 4 weeks.
You really want to see me back again?
You're more than welcome to come anytime, Mr.
Yeah, I
Craig.
know, you're a sweetheart,
You
okay?
know, I'm really not.
Yeah, well, okay,
Ask my kids.
okay,
No, but thank you.
yeah, okay. All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You're great, Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you.
And smart. He is, very.
Huh? Yeah.
Okay,
I was just gonna ask you, Madam Chair, I mean, is this a revisit this in a few weeks, or is this revisit it the next time the program opens, next calendar year, or I'm just not sure when
well,
we
I
have all
think
the
that
pieces
we
to
have
figure
some
out.
questions that we need answered. I think you're going to go and look into that too. And we obviously need to ask that question, that if, there is no liability to this town whatsoever if we were to support this, how tied up are we for future?
Well, town council did say they could write something up. I mean, I don't know what that would look like to like limit our liability, so we could explore that. Another question I had, I don't know if this is like a deterrent on your project as well. Our understanding is you would grant us an easement. Would that have to go through town meeting approval?
That,
And if so, does mass development require that before you apply, or can it be afterwards?
that's a really good question. I don't know the answer. I would actually tend to defer to town council on that, on when that easement has to be in place. And it's also something, again, getting back to a comment earlier, we're looking for clarity from mass development that an easement counts as publicly owned to ensure that we are eligible.
Right,
So
because
that's
it's not a category.
exactly.
Right.
So we want to make sure that's a big piece. That's been what I learned and sort of educated myself in this process, is that these funds are funded through bonds, through bond bills. And I don't know if it's federal legislature or state legislature requires that those federal bonds are issued through municipalities. So it's not like this is something that everybody is dealing with. So I'm looking for clarity on whether or not the easement piece counts is the short answer. And in doing so, I assume would also get clarity on, will our application need to include a documented easement that says, you know, here we've done this, it's executed. Here's the proof, essentially.
Okay. My only other question is, have you heard like any, I don't know the word for it, but just, have you talked to anyone at Mass Development that kind of says like unofficially, like this would be a good idea?
Yes, that's, we are having, like I said, as many conversations as we can to ensure that we're submitting an application that abides by the rules, that meets their criteria, that will be elevated to a priority project. So we're banging down the doors to make sure that we're having those conversations and we're getting in front of as many people as we can. If the feedback we get in that process is, hey, you know, we don't think you have a chance, sorry, like we don't think this project is real, or whatever reason they have, the easement doesn't check the box for us, then we'll be forced to look elsewhere. We believe this project fits the bill for what they're looking for and what they're trying to do with the funds that they have. But ultimately, the decision is in their hands, and we'll try to make sure that we're positioned as best we can.
I would just say to the board that the expression of interest that they submitted, it's not a required thing, it's like encouraged, but so if you feel forced into like saying yes or no tonight, they can still like come back and get all the questions answered and still apply, and I think it opens in May 14th or so.
Yeah.
And the deadline's in June, so.
I think what, if you don't mind, what we would ask tonight, just given the expression of interest is due on the 26th, so I guess we could come back in 2 weeks and have a follow-up conversation. This expression of interest is a non-binding commitment. It is not saying, hey, we're going forward. It rather gives the state an opportunity to say, hey, your project fits the bill or it doesn't, or hey, we actually think that this project is better suited for a different category within One Stop. So that feedback can be really, really helpful and can put it on their radar that, hey, this is coming down the pike. So what we would ask tonight is if the board feels comfortable, is allowing us to coordinate through Andrew with submitting this expression of interest that you all have been provided, so that we can start to get some feedback and make sure we're not wasting your time, that we're actually moving in the right direction.
Our next meeting's the 31st.
Right.
Madam Chairman, it's my understanding, and somebody had told me, I don't know if it's correct, that there's not enough money to do the project. So in other words, there's the government or the state, whoever, there's enough money to probably do the landfill, but to go the next step forward, there's not enough money in the account. I don't know if you heard that.
It's not my,
Be hearsay at best.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Madam Chair, this
if
is
that be the
hearsay, and
case,
It could be derogatory towards
Right,
the
right.
developer, so we can.
so that's why I didn't wanna
Yeah,
go into any,
yeah.
I wanted to keep this conversation ongoing,
one
so,
other thing, and that's the last, and I'll leave.
okay.
There was always a trailer there, a guard, watching the property right now. How come there's no trailer there and a guard?
Okay, Mr. Kubicki, I think you have a good question, but this is off topic for our discussion this evening. So
Okay.
you can hold that, or
Okay.
maybe you could go through the town administrator, or maybe, to get your answer. But, I just need to know from the board this evening, do we direct, our town administrator to put in this letter, of interest?
I'm a no at this point. Too many open questions.
Yeah, I feel like I need an answer to the liability question.
Same.
Okay,
If it's non-binding, we're not agreeing to anything. But I feel, since we're not meeting before it closes, we don't have an opportunity to get answers to the questions. It's non-binding, so there is no liability at this point. I understand why you're all saying no, to be perfectly clear. I'm not saying I'm sold on it. But if it is non-binding and we're not meeting until after the deadline closes,
all right, I'm gonna ask, our town administrator for a recommendation.
But the chair can always schedule another meeting, so
Yes.
if they get answers.
Right.
yeah, true.
Yeah. And, which is why I'm asking our town administrator for a recommendation.
I would just, I mean, I put in a letter of interest for this program like a few weeks ago, where they gives you back good information. They might, like you said, he might come back and say, this is no good, possibly. I would say to go forward with it, and then in 2 weeks' time, you could say, we don't want to do this anymore. We can find out all these answers. I'd rather get clarity from mass development instead of like, I don't want to call them backroom conversations, but it kind of brings it out into the, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. But gets those answers on paper. Just, it's more information we can get to make an informed decision down the line.
Madam Chair, through you, is there any way, shape, or form that by us looking for this, that we get put on that allocation or possible list where when we're going and looking for other things of the same vein, where they will automatically kind of put away our ability to apply for them?
I wouldn't say so.
And is there anything that we're applying under that right now?
No, I haven't come back to that for authorization. I was gonna come back with an economic development strategy. That'd be like 20, 30,000, small amount. This is obviously the dwarf that.
But the likelihood of us getting that,
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I don't know how the state looks at this project and says, let's just get this done already. And they might just fund multiple deals. It's hard to say.
Okay. So, I'll entertain a motion, to support the request to submit the, expression of interest to, mass development, right?
Yes.
Okay. For just, am I saying it right? Am I asking the right motion?
discuss possible expression of interest, mass development.
To submit a, expression of interest to mass development.
For the 2026 Massachusetts Community One Stop for Growth Grant Program.
Okay,
For
thank you.
brownfields
That's what I was looking
redevelopment.
for. Okay, thank you. It was right here.
I don't have whatever you're looking at, so you gotta repeat it slow so I can type it.
All right. Do
It's
I-
on the second page at the top.
So I'll
I did
entertain
not
a
make it up out of my
motion
head.
Let's go.
to support the request to submit an expression of interest to the 2026 Mass Community One Stop Growth Grant Program application
For brownfields redevelopment grant.
for Brownfields redevelopment grant. And we have it, and you can have my copy.
It's on that page, okay.
Okay,
The second one, thank you.
so, your motion?
So moved.
Second? second? Motion and a second, is there discussion?
This is just a motion to,
Same, I'm like,
Right, this is just a motion to submit a letter of, expression of interest. That's it. We are not bound to anything.
Amen,
Doesn't change anything.
amen.
Okay. All right, well,
baby and I.
Donahue, aye.
Carboni, aye.
Candido, I.
Day night.
Amen.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll get you some information. And like we'll be back in the 31st, you said is your next?
That's when our next scheduled
Okay,
meeting.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks for your patience as we work through our
Absolutely.
block and time and, Hey, were you guys even doing that?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Awesome, thank you, Mr. Kavicki.
Doing
Are you staying for the whole meeting?
Meeting's over?
No,
Oh,
we
okay.
still have more business.
Okay,
We still have a couple hours left.
okay. You want me out of here, right? Okay. Andrew, I'll see you tomorrow
Thank you very
morning.
much.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
Okay, agenda item number 8. Discuss and possible vote on letter to Executive Office of Administration and Finance regarding a bond bill funding. Andrew, would you please?
Yeah, thank you. So basically, since my first day, I've kind of heard that there's bond money out there of some degree. I've since found out it's 2 separate allocations. They both come from like 5 and 7 years ago. One of them is the 2.5 million for the Bridge Street light. I found out that that's no longer available to the town. That's from Senator Roderick's office. So what's remaining is 1 million allocation from DCAM, Administration and Finance Secretary, for $1 million. And in your packet, it kind of lays out what it's allowed for, which is provided further that 1 million shall be expended for infrastructure upgrades and capital improvements to encourage and promote the reuse of the former Lakeville State Hospital site in the town of Lakeville.
I know someone looking for money, actually.
Yeah, this doesn't explicitly tie to Rhino. It could be used for a number of items, traffic light, like we just kind of mentioned before, water, wastewater, anything really that meets that definition. But what Senator Roderick's office had told me is that they want to see a vote and a letter from the select board to Secretary Gorkowitz, I think is how it's pronounced, to basically get the ball rolling. Now, I've talked to Senator Roderick. He still says it's a 50-50 at that point, whether we get that or not. What Senator Gorkowitz will look at what we're looking for and then kind of say, is that a good idea or not? And then he would put it on the capital improvement.
So would there would be some advocacy that would need to take place at this point, so. All right, so, I'm really bummed to hear about this, Bridge Street light because this was a concern of ours for quite some time. But that being said, this opens up a whole other conversation that this board, has concerns about, which is the development and potential development on Route 105. Because a light at Bridge Street is one thing, right? But we have more development happening in that congested area, as you know, as the plans have been coming in front of this board. So, maybe the light is still something of, that needs to take place. But I think that there needs to be some kind of collaboration study, something to say, okay, these are the projects that are being proposed, coming to fruition, and this is the area that it's going to be hitting the hardest. Is the Bridge Street light the best, or is there another option to make that happen? I think there was a roundabout that came up in a conversation. I don't know what the answer is. I'm no expert. I just know that this is a concern. So.
Madam Chair, that whole stretch from like Bridge, just look at the map, Bridge Street, all the way to Commercial Drive, like pulling in and out of any of those side streets is a nightmare, especially with the curve in the road there. Like, I don't even know where to start, besides slapping a light on every one of them. Like, it's difficult.
because I feel that it, you know, we might have addressed one issue because of the Bridge Street, you know, coming out of Bridge Street, it's just awful. But I think that it's short-sighted because of the rest of what's happening there. I mean, we saw in one of our, presentations to this board that one of the developments that would be taking place across the street would have an entrance that was not at that intersection. It was further down. But that would still cause concern with people, you know, I'm no traffic study, but, you know, I can visualize the chaos that would create, so.
Madam Chair, Member Day, for Bridge Street, when you're coming out, is the funeral home directly across?
No.
Or do you still?
Down at an
The
angle.
old
I can't
drive.
picture it in my
It's
head.
diagonal to the
Yeah,
right.
so there's like, at the end of Bridge, there's kind of like one of the old driveways to the hospital.
Yep.
Which
Yep.
is not the parcel Rhino owns. It
Yep.
would have made sense if they were able to
Yep.
get that one. Then you've got the funeral home.
Yep,
Then between the funeral home and the new self-storage, that's where one of Rhino's driveways for the assisted living in the 40B would be.
okay.
And then just past that is the new apartment buildings, all on the same side. It's just gonna be bam, 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 all higher traffic exits onto Main Street.
So because we can't obviously retrofit something in there, is there an opportunity to do like they do in Florida, where you have the offshoot road that gathers all the little roads together? Do you know what I'm talking
I
about?
know exactly what you're talking
Like
about.
when
but-
you pull it in and then all those exits, so they're going out one exit.
That's
I
state
think
road
that's-
though, right?
Yeah.
Yes, but alongside of it, it's not.
All those buildings are too close to the main.
But I think that this is a discussion and, you know, the experts, the engineers, you know, could certainly.
Okay, can we just back up for a second, Madam Chair? So the 2 million is gone. No way to get it back.
2.5.
2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
No way to get it back.
That's what their understanding was. Yeah.
Do you know as of when it was gone?
Yesterday.
It would have been 5 years from 2020, which I know was recently, but they seem to think it was long gone.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cause
unfortunately.
we kept,
No,
Bringing
there's
this
something
up.
funky going on. So we had it in 2019 and then they issued it in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And then it fell asleep for a while. And then 2022, I remember seeing former town administrator pick it up again, and they had to do a brand new study in 2022 in order to qualify for the money. And so if there was a qualification, you would think it would have restarted the clock of some sort? Because how long
It wasn't like it
takes-
was asleep. We kept reaching out to the state on how
It was
and.
250,000 for the engineering, and that was what was holding up us doing it.
Because we needed to
Why do
come
we need to do engineering on a state road? I don't know. But at the same time, I know that that was the holdup. And I know there was some contention over it as well, being the holdup for a while, but
I don't think there was no appropriation from town meeting to do that engineering, to my understanding, right?
no.
no,
Nope. So once that happened, can we get a heads up when something's going off? Like, if we have dates on stuff, we should be putting it somewhere.
Yeah,
This
it
is the
was-
second, well, this is way bigger than the other one. We had gone for a bond bill for 100,000 for IT infrastructure anywhere in town. It just dropped. It was just gone. That's a drop in the bucket for $2.5 million. This is it's nothing we will ever be able to fund out of our budgets.
So what we could do is, hypothetically, we could approve the engineering design through this bond bill and then get it on the tip to pay for the question.
right, which is something that would benefit us.
It would be
Yes.
great in 2030.
Right, maybe, long time from now.
Yeah.
All right, so, I guess we don't have to commit to a specific direction for this, but we know that it's, whatever it is gonna be used for this.
We have to, I thought Andrew just said we have to.
This is our letter here to promote the
well-
reuse of the,
But it says TBD at the
Yeah.
bottom, so I
Yeah,
think you're looking
that's-
for some direction.
That's where the direction would come from, yeah. We don't have to take this vote tonight. we have the funding till, kind of earmarked until June of 27.
Well, I don't wanna lose it, so
No.
do you wanna,
We can come back at a later time and,
Yeah, I
We have
mean, I still
brainstorm.
think after not being prepared when that ARPA money came, again, I keep saying this a million times, I know that was probably a one-time thing. But we still have no real, like, concrete water plan in this town, right? So it's like, we've extended it to here, and now we're gonna extend it a little bit more. And there is some question how far it goes up county, and, you know, I wish we could just figure out where all the water lines are. I know we got that little tentative map, but it's not really
comprehensive.
like
yeah,
detailed.
right.
so are you saying something like that as opposed to upgrades and capital improvements for this?
For what?
The,
Bridge Street?
right,
Well, I'm just saying that's one thing that would interest me.
okay.
Well, but this has to tie back to the hospital somehow, right?
Right, correct, yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah,
mean,
but-
have we reached out to any of the utilities that run down Main and say, like, is there anything here that needs upgrading or repair or?
I've reached out to Middleborough. They have a broken pipe. It's about $1 million to fix, but they don't have the capacity to give us any sewer for the foreseeable future.
Right, so even if it was
Didn't they
fixed,
just get a new treatment plant?
They did, but not, they
It's
have
already-
so many developments over there that they,
It's already obsolete.
yeah.
Good planning.
But
Why
I
does
mean,
everything come
they
in
have like
$1 million increments? Not
They
even
have-
$500,000 anymore.
they have 4 or 5 major developments over there that all housing, so they said, don't bank on it.
Don't call.
Don't call.
Don't call us, we'll call you.
Yeah.
And what about now, if I'm remembering, there's 2 water lines that almost converge and they don't
Yep.
in there. So is Taunton interested in extending that line?
Yeah, as long as they don't have to pay for it, they'll do anything, you know?
But is Taunton on the,
Rhode Island.
the others? Thank you, yeah. Can we just repave that part?
Of course.
Yeah, frankly, I'm so happy.
So do you need an answer tonight on this? Or
No.
should we all just send you a suggestion and then we can get it ready and then?
Vote on it.
Yeah, brainstorming I think would be the best idea. I don't wanna rush into it and
Can you
then,
bring it back on the 31st?
yeah. Yep.
Okay,
I'm still having a hard time with that 2.5 million, I have to tell you.
me too.
I still think that we've reached out enough to them that it never was that asleep.
Yeah, I think it got allocated for other reasons.
All right, you got that, Trace? We're gonna bring this one back to, on the 31st. Okay. All right, so now, agenda item number 11. This is from our Department of Public Works Director. This is something that we haven't seen in the last few years, but this is about a request for a vote to authorize the deficit spending for snow and ice for fiscal year 2025. Because we've actually had snow this year. So, there's a memo here, just due to the increase, salt and ice events related, vehicle maintenance, we will be exceeding the snow and budget. Pursuant to the general laws, chapter 44, sections 31D, as amended by the Municipal Modernization Act. Please authorize, deficit spending for snow and ice removal or snow and ice for fiscal year 2025.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
I was under the impression that because you were defined as the chief administrative officer, that this did not have to come before this board.
It doesn't technically have to come.
Got
It's more
it.
about transparency,
Yep, we
good
had
thing to
snow
know.
this year.
Good thing to know.
Yeah, we
you
did.
know?
We did have some snow. All right, so, I'll entertain a motion, to authorize, the deficit spending for snow and ice for fiscal year 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion?
Where are we at?
Money-wise?
Dollar-wise? Yeah.
I think we're right around 0. So,
Left.
well, 0 left, yeah, that's what I mean. So we're just about the next snowstorm,
close.
we're in the red,
Yeah,
which I hope doesn't happen.
well, we're in March, we'll probably get one more, yeah.
I mean, this also covers like the nights when it doesn't snow, but it's icing.
You have to ice it,
Correct.
yeah.
Okay, so there's been a lot of that, but not a lot of snow.
Some fake snowstorms.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll please.
Baby and I.
Donahue, aye?
Carboni, aye.
Candido,
Yeah,
No snow.
no snow, no ice, no nothing.
Agenda item number 12, our Lakeville Arts Council has put in their request for the annual Lakeville Arts and Music Festival for the dates of September 30th through October 10th. And that covers the event that would take place on October 4th from Saturday, October 4th from 10 to 4 p.m. There has to be setup in the beginning and cleanup in the end. So therefore, the dates of the request are September 30th through October 10th, 2025. So I will entertain a motion to approve the use of the historic townhouse, stage and grounds in Dick Dickren Square for the annual Lakeville Arts and Music Festival from September 30th through October 10th, 2025.
So moved.
Second,
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
the bathroom might be done by then.
yeah. The bathroom's done by then, or is it still porta potty time?
I don't know, that we could be, I think they're moving right along.
Should be close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll please.
Baby and I.
Donahue, aye?
Carboni, aye.
Candido, aye.
Say aye.
Okay, well, I'm gonna wait for Andrew.
All right, I'm gonna switch positions with them, so here.
Do we all want to take a 4-minute break, recess?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. LakeCAM?
all the old folks and make sure all stuff, he'd walk them down.
That's
He'd be like,
awesome.
let's go.
Okay. We are back from our 4-minute recess. We're heading into agenda item number 13. So our town administrator is presenting to us a kind of a reorganizational plan for the select board town administrator offices. So Andrew, take it away.
Okay, thank you. So since I started, I've done a lot of like, I guess, looking at what each department does, what my department does. And I kind of, right now, looked at 2 positions in particular that I think would help out the community a great deal. And actually would save money in the long run, which I think are 2 of the goals that the select board has. One of them, and I'm not sold on the title, so I'm open to feedback on everything, is the administrative specialist, which would replace the assistant to the town administrative position. It would pay $65,000 to $72,500. And it would have 3, I guess, driving functions. One would help out the HR department. Now, I shouldn't say HR, it's more like a crossover. So I was thinking relative to HR would be communications, the newsletter. It would involve strategic planning, which I haven't introduced to you guys yet, but that's coming. It would help the finance office, especially with the budget and the big piece. I know select board member Fabian really wants financial reporting, and I think that's coming. But that position would kind of do the grunt work on that. Then it would help out the town administrator's office, in particular with grants, procurement, reporting, help out with committees and coordination amongst them all, ad hoc analysis, day-to-day stuff, and then the other big piece is project management. So that is one thing. It's going to be a very busy job. So it's going to take someone either internally or externally that is going to like doing a lot of work. And the other position that I am proposing is the finance director / town accountant. They would kind of oversee the treasurer collector, the accounting office, and they would have a loose affiliation with the Board of Assessors. They wouldn't necessarily oversee them, but they'll have a big, almost symbiotic relationship. A lot of reports going to come out of that office. They're going to have a big say in the procurement side of things. Mike does a lot of the budgeting right now. So I think you're going to see you'll see the budget in a few weeks, but it's going to look a lot different next year, and he's going to have a big say in all that. And so I think he'll kind of solidify the financials in the town. I think we're going to go through a period of, I want to call them dark times financially, but I'll say dark times financially. And I think he's going to be the backstop of a lot of that. He's going to have a more of a firm say on assessing, treasurer, collecting, accounting, budget, procurement. He's going to make sure everything is up to par. And we'll have a close relationship. And one of the big things I think the board has kind of had as a goal for me, I guess in particular, is to have a, lack of a better term, is second in command. So if I'm ever out of the office, he'll be tapped as, I don't want to say acting, but he'll be the one in charge. And what I've kind of done to prepare him for that is I invite him into a lot of the meetings that even have a semblance of financial or into it. So he has a lay of the land of all the issues that I present on every week. And so I think he'll be someone that'll be here a long time and hopefully act as me when I'm in my absence. So these are the 2 positions. The third one that I don't have in front of you for tonight is the administrative assistant to the select board. As you know, Tracy will be retiring in August. Over the years, she's had a lot of responsibilities. I think some of them have been kind of unfair with just the amount of duty she's responsible for is just, it's an incredible amount. So I would think this position that we would kind of create eventually is gonna take away some of the extra stuff that I think burdens her week to week. And that stuff will go over to the administrative specialist. And this new position would kind of be $60,000. It would still be 32 hours a week, but strictly kind of tied to the select board's functions, especially with agendas and day-to-day. So, that's kind of what I've envisioned. I didn't really mention it, but the finance director position would be 100,000, which, you believe it or not, it's kind of low. Rochester's advertising right now for $130,000. So,
Suzanne's leaving?
what?
Suzanne's
Yeah,
leaving?
she's finally retiring in June. So,
End of an era,
yeah,
right?
definitely, and, definitely a hometown discount for the town accountant. So he enjoys it. So definitely help to have someone in-house that can do the job for 100,000.
I have a lot of comments. Good
So-
ones.
So with the administrative specialist, because I'm thinking bigger picture here, because there's a lot of, crossover. There's some under the special projects, but I think that they need to be defined somewhat. It's the green communities. That was a huge, piece within the office. We've got Route 79 coming. There's a huge administrative component to that. There's also the MVP, which is the Municipal Vulnerabilities Preparedness grant that I guess we're kind of fell out of compliance at this moment, so we need to be brought back into compliance because there's a lot of grants associated with that. And then it's our hazardous mitigation plan, which our fire chief had picked the ball up on that and ran with that. So there's those kind of like projects that are happening, but they're not all the time, but there's certain requirements that have to take place for those.
Right.
And I don't want to see that not have administrative support, because they're pretty critical to, the work that we've put into here at the town to be receiving those designations.
Yeah, I didn't put it specifically in the description, but this person would do all that.
Okay. Do we have a Superman cape too?
Well, it's gonna be so the office right now is pretty close relationship between myself, Lacey, Tracy. This person's gonna be close, Mike. So we kind of like all lean on each other for different things. So
Okay.
I have lots.
I have a couple.
You go first.
It might turn into more, we'll see. I mean, first of all, I'm like thrilled to see some like just reorganization here. I've said in the past multiple times, I felt like a town administrator just has way too many direct reports. There's no way to time slice across that many directs. So I really applaud the fact that he went out and did that on his own and identified that. I am concerned given how, he and Mike have been trying to find every nickel possible for these next couple of years. My concern would be, is this enough support? Given what's coming in the town's growth, right? I think this is very well thought out. But I don't know that it's gonna give us that cross training that we've talked about if somebody's out for an extended leave. So I love what he's put together. I don't know if we should be saying, hey, this isn't the time to sacrifice and burn out. Like if you're concerned about the cost, what would you have put in front of us? Because maybe it's another smaller position. I'd like to see perhaps the administrative assistant be 40 hours. So we've got like full coverage around the week. So if somebody's out, it's less problem to cover, but I love what he's given us. I'm just concerned that we're gonna burn him out or somebody else in that office.
And I do understand that we still would have a part-time person in our office, as well.
Do you have a floater?
we do.
Yep.
Lisa Cordero.
Yeah,
Okay.
So that's
18 hours,
15. I want to say it's 15.
15?
Is that
Yeah.
dedicated to you or
It's split.
It's split.
the 15
Yeah.
across what? Like, how
Well,
many do you
it's
get?
it's whoever's kind of out and who needs the
So
person.
we do have a couple of floater positions. But I think most of the time, the floater was covering the town clerk's office. But we were able to secure a part-time position for that office that they were in need of.
Well, they definitely
We
did.
did that. So we do have a couple of floaters that I think support town hall.
Yep. I can't tell if you're trying to change my thought or
No,
make me
I'm
feel
just saying,
better.
I'm just saying, I'm not changing your thought by any means. That wasn't my intent. It was just to say that, I didn't want it to be a forgotten concept that we do have a part-timer too. So,
I want to back up some of the stuff that Member Day said. It was very forward-thinking and making use of our own employees and creating succession planning and redundancy in tasks, very important. Easy yes on the finance director accountant role. Having a full-time person in the finance office is great. I just want to make sure that, you know, we've got everything enumerated, and if we don't, we put some language in there saying, and other duties assigned, because that's how life works. So just adding and the other duties. But as far as that goes, I think that's buttoned up really pretty well on finance director. The administrative specialist, I would say you've got a lot of qualifications for this role. I don't know if they're all the right qualifications. I'm a little bit worried at the accounting and finance portion, that it might be over in someone else's job description as well. So I just want to make sure that we're being very cognizant of making sure the job descriptions are lined up and we're not putting duplicate roles without having some explanation on that. I didn't see grant writing versus grant execution on here. I saw listing on grants, but it's saying identifying them, files, applications, required documenting. But is this person going to be executing as well the grants, or did I just miss that?
What do you mean by executing?
So a lot of grants have reporting, well, not a lot of, some grants have reporting requirements.
Yep.
So would we be keeping this person with the reporting requirements too?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I love the project management piece. You didn't have anything about any project management certifications, like a CPIM or a PMP. That might be something for someone to go for as like an educational thing, because as Member Carboni stated, we have so much coming up with the Route 79 project, and having the right people in the role and having them have the right skill sets for there is going to be important for you guys to stay organized and ready to go. It is a lot, and I don't think the title really belays the position. Do I know what the title should be? I have some ideas, but I don't know. Administrative specialist really conveys all the things that this person is doing. When I'm thinking administrative, I'm really thinking someone that's waiting for tasks to do or has like clearly defined tasks, instead of someone really owning some of the things in the role that are, you know, a little bit, you know, upper level. So I would say that it would be more of a, and I know this isn't a popular one, but an analyst like role, where it's showing progression to someone if they want to put this on their resume at some point. I don't know that they're going to want to put administrative specialist if they're going to try, you know, for something else in the future. I don't know if it conveys that.
Program specialist or.
Project management
That's
and
what I would say.
specialty, like,
In private, I'd say is a program manager,
yeah.
but I don't know how that translates to.
Yeah, but I would think that this would not, if someone was searching for more and more roles, this is not a role that they would want to have on their resume for that fact. And I want to attract, like,
They'd be explaining what they do.
exactly. They'd be like, but that's not really what I do.
Right.
I've had roles like that either, where it's like head of this. Well, what does that mean? Well, actually, I don't even work over in that area anymore. They just haven't changed my title. So I would like some more thought into what that is, and maybe go on the MMA website. They're a really good resource for job descriptions and what people are doing. But I would say I would elevate the title of the position because the tasks are really significant. And we are taking the cost of this role down significantly from where it was when it was the assistant to role. And what is it, like a $12,000 savings? If we hit max on this
Yeah.
role, it would be 12,000. It's up, you know.
And is it more responsibility?
I would say it is, but unlike Chair Carboni, I thought the green communities and MVP went over to planning.
No,
No.
It didn't?
no.
No.
Okay.
Consider possibly resurrecting the town coordinator title.
Possible.
Put a fork in it.
I kicked around about
title.
10 different titles. To be honest with you, I mean, management analyst is a big one. Administrative analyst, that's what I was in Middleborough when I first started.
Kind of a jack of all trades, if I
Right.
remember.
Exactly. Administrative coordinator is another one. There's a bunch.
Yeah.
Um,
I just don't want this position to be pigeonholed. The analyst part, that
could even
doesn't
still-
define, but
you always could still call it an assistant to the town administrator if you really
we could.
could.
It gets confusing for people. They're like, but is that the assistant or the assistant to the assistant? It
Right.
reminds me of
Yeah.
that episode of The Office.
Yeah, it needs some kind of distinct title. I don't know what it is either.
Yep. I know it ain't this one though.
But I like the thought process
Yeah.
behind it because yeah.
My other comment for the board is, however we decide to do this, I think we should hire this person immediately, in order to start building continuity plans because we are losing all the expertise from Tracy and those years, and having this role and the other one that you haven't brought in front of us
Yeah.
as soon as possible is where we should be, because they should be up and running well before Tracy leaves, you know, the one lady show she's been running. So, and we do have the funds from Christina's position that we did not fill for the last, you know, it will be like 4 months. So we should be able to
Right.
get that.
Planner might be open again.
Yeah. We should be able to get those funds, but it's within the office, so we don't have to do a
Transfer.
budget transfer. So we should be able to get those funds up and running, so you can get that done sooner. Because we are going to lose a tremendous amount of, you know, just operations knowledge when Tracy leaves. And I know she's going to want to have some vacations before she goes when the nice weather comes too.
We are thinking of bringing that job description in a few weeks.
Yeah.
We're gonna look over it and bring it back, but we were anticipating a transition period
Yep.
of a few weeks to a month.
Of course you were.
Yep.
At least.
No, of course you were.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure
Yeah.
you've
Sooner-
got that well
Sooner
thought
rather than
out.
later though, yeah.
Yeah.
My assumption is you and Tracy talked about, okay, is August the last day of pay or the last day in the building? Like, are you cashing out vacation, using vacation at the end? So you two figure that out?
We haven't gotten that down in
Yeah.
the details, but something like, yeah.
My last day in the building is 12:30, August 5th.
12:30. Are you gonna have the chain like Rita?
Already have it.
Not that we're counting.
Yes, and then I'm using personal time for the rest of that week.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Leah and Brenna, please. It's been quiet on this side of the table.
So I just had a kind of a very specific item on the finance director / town accountant. I know it says, towards the bottom of page 2, working on budgets and annual town reports, works with department heads on capital requests and assists the town administrator in preparing the annual 5-year capital improvement plan. Should we specify, like, participating on the actual capital expenditures committee in your absence or something like that? That would take a little pressure off of you if you guys know what you're doing going forward and you don't have to go to that meeting because you've already done 20 that week, then you know, as long as, it's in here, so no one can say, why isn't the town administrator going to that? I mean, I feel like,
Yeah, we
No.
can certainly put that in. He's already kind of doing that.
yeah,
Because he went to the school committee, I think, last week and OC the week before that. So, yeah, that's definitely something we can.
yeah, and I mean, working on the capital improvement plan doesn't specifically mean, you know, not necessarily being one of the committee members, just
Being aware.
being aware, yeah, and actually sitting with that group of 5 people, because that could be helpful, so.
Are you a voting member on that? I forget.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
What was that?
No, okay.
Remember, we had that whole fun, it's in the bylaw.
You have to be a
A Lakeville resident.
Lakeville resident.
Oh, right, yes. Yep. Thank you for the reminder.
And it was confusing because both Rita and I had been Lakeville residents, so in the past it was fine.
Yeah.
But as far as, I think Andrew spent enough time here, day in, day out. I think he had a good idea of what he needed a couple of months ago. I'm just glad to see some of this moving forward right now.
Brenna?
No comments.
No comment, okay. So we can take action tonight. I think that there was, some good input for the, finance director, accountant. I think we're in support of that.
Okay.
We could carry the vote through that to change that title and,
Is it a change of title or is it a
oh, it's a change,
creating of
yeah.
position and applying?
Well, because it's an accountant right now, town accountant. So it would be a change in title. Do we want to come back on the
Just-
31st with a recommendation? But the problem with, well, even with that,
It still would fall under that town accountant line in the budget.
Because it has a slash.
Yeah, that's like what most communities are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as the sum on the line is summed up, fine, we don't.
I'm just making sure HR wise that we can just flip the title and make this happen. It doesn't have to be like posted internally, externally or anything like that. I don't know those processes well enough.
I was anticipating this starting July 1st.
Okay.
I don't know if that changes a little bit, but because it's going to go through the budget cycle, it's going to be transition, I think, with Mike. So I want to kind of get it perfected before we start on July 1st.
so that could be introduced into the budget and then, yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay. But we do need to work on the transition for the office support.
Through you, I forget if you were here when Frank changed to director of DPW. How did that process work?
Done.
Search, find, replace?
Yep.
Okay.
It was a change of role, not a new role.
Gotcha. Right, thank you.
Yep. And then we're like, oh yeah, we gotta change it to DPW instead of a highway department. Yes, but first we did the role, then we did the department to match.
Okay.
All right, so does anyone want to make a motion?
Make the motion to approve the finance director / town accountant position for $100,000 a year, starting July 1st, 2025.
Motion?
Was that the end of it?
Think so.
Okay, second?
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
It's like,
Hearing none? Roll, please.
Baby and I.
Donahue, aye.
Carboni, aye.
Candido, I.
Yeah,
Okay, congratulations, Mr. Ellis.
I assume he's on board with this?
Oh, yeah.
You haven't showed him.
Yes.
It's just finding out.
Surprise.
All right, and then, come back on the 31st with your
corrections.
final draft?
You're gonna
Yeah.
come back with both or just one
Just the, administrative specialist position.
and not the administrative assistant to the select board?
We'll try, but that's the budget day where I present, so.
Got it.
Might be a tough one.
Okay,
Good call.
okay, thank you. All right, agenda item number 14. Yeah, that was 31, by the way.
I know
It was
it.
funny. But I can see where it gets backwards.
Well, for me,
And then I thought it was me because I was looking at the clock.
no, for me it was 13.
That's right. Okay, so we are required to approve and sign the April 7th, 2025 annual town election warrant. So we already voted the date, we voted the positions, and we now have to vote to sign the warrant. So I'll entertain a motion to approve and sign the April 7th, 2025 annual town warrant as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
There it is, okay. You definitely have the extra one park commissioner
Yes.
for,
Yeah.
okay.
And meet the candidates is the 24th, is it? I think I saw.
Oh, I would have put that on my announcements. God.
Just came to mind looking at this.
Where is it? I read it briefly, but it didn't.
Senior
stick.
Center, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't get a memo about it to read.
It was planned for the 21st and there were a couple of scheduling issues, so then it got moved to the 24th, so.
Okay. From 5 to 7, I believe, right? 7.
I don't know what time, but it is in the evening. Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, we'll make sure it gets up on the,
I think it's 7 p.m.
okay, thank you. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll please.
Baby and I.
Donnie, aye.
Carboni, aye.
Candido,
Yeah.
Agenda item number 15, we have in front of us a public way license application for the Mullen Hill Christian Academy, 5K Mother's Day run, looking for, May 3rd, 2025. They have submitted their application. It looks like it's been, completed. Their payment has been received and it's been signed off by our DPW, Inspectional Services, Police and Fire. This is the same, looks like the same route that it's been the last couple of years. So I will entertain a motion to approve the public way license application for Mullen Hill Christian Academy, 5K Mother's Day run on May 3rd, 2025.
So moved.
Second, quick discussion.
Motion is second, discussion.
I'm just gonna repeat the same thing I say every year. Please, can we get a map that's legible?
It's just a yellow line.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I request them to provide a better map so I can send it out to the board.
This map is good
Okay.
for this year. But next year, we would like a better
I
map.
I will put that in the letter that I sent to them.
Okay. All right, roll please.
Baby and I.
Donnie, aye.
Carboni, aye.
Candido,
Say aye.
Agenda item number 16, we have a request from the Conservation Commission to appoint William Urfanos as a member. There's a letter of interest from William to be appointed to the commission, and there's a memo from the Conservation Commission requesting the appointment. This is filling a 3-year term that expires July 31st, 2025.
Is it an unexpired 3-year term?
Madam Chair, it was, somebody had resigned, their term expired July 31st, 2025. Conservation members are 3-year terms.
Correct.
So the board has the ability to either vote him in till July 31st, 2025, or to vote him until July 31st, 2028.
Gotcha, thank you.
Are these, so we vote at the appointments every year anyways, right?
Right, every year there is at least one member of the Conservation Commission that is up for renewal, and that's a 3-year term. They're not 1-year terms.
Right. So what I would suggest, that it fills this term and then starts fresh,
I'd like to make a motion.
please.
To approve the request for William Ophanos as a member to the Conservation Commission, term expiring July 31st, 2025.
Second.
Motion and second discussion? Hearing none, roll please.
Baby and I.
Donahue, aye.
Carboni, aye.
Indeed, do I.
Yeah.
All right, and then, well, Mr. Alfanos might decide, that he doesn't want to be here for the next 3 weeks. So, but I want to keep it in terms with what we have so far, so, excellent. Agenda item number 17, so discuss and possible vote on the charge for the Economic Development Committee. Andrew, take it away, please.
So, thank you. So I would say 2 or 3 times a week, there's always like a call about economic development related activity. And I would say I'm always kind of tap dancing around, getting myself in trouble of what I can say or not. People say, where can I move? Where can I go in town? Where I'm leaving my warehouse. Who else can I contact? Or like a development call. And it always kind of seems like I'm giving out advice or telling people stuff that I'm not saying I shouldn't say, but it's just, I feel like I might get myself saying stuff that maybe the whole board might not agree with, let's say. And in the TA Act, it really just says I coordinate activities amongst the boards related to long-term municipal planning, economic development. It's a 3rd term in there. So my thought was to resurrect the Economic Development Committee, which I don't think has met since 2017.
We haven't.
And I thought since we're facing, like I said, dark times financially.
Stop saying it.
We need new growth. We need business in town. I think where it should be, I should say. And I thought this committee would kind of guide that process. And I thought to make the charge explicit, and this committee could designate town officials to handle or help out with economic development efforts. Like I've said, I think even in this meeting, I'm applying to Community One Stop for an economic development strategy. And I know some bit about economic development activity, but not a whole lot. I'm not a business owner. So
Probably the first thing they ask you, like, what's the charge of your economic development group?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think they'll be able to drive that process. They'll be able to say, like, what are you looking for out of this, the strategy? And I think, this committee would do a lot of benefit to the town to be back and meeting. So I was hoping to change the charge just slightly. Obviously hasn't met since the selectmen has changed to the select board. But yeah, that's the kind of the whole rundown. Obviously, the terms have expired for everybody on the committee.
Every year.
Every year, so obviously that'll have to be something we advertise to see who wants to be on it. So.
I know that there's some really active, economic development committees in some other, communities that, have really done some amazing things. We've got, going on in Taunton, I know, comparing apples to oranges here, but Taunton really, does a really good job, of attracting and trying to help, the businesses, coming into town, so, Attleboro is another one, Mansfield. They're really, really strong.
We need to do this.
So, yeah, we do.
Yeah, we need to.
Yep.
I just had a couple of quick conversations with Nancy Durfee. When was the last time we even looked at what buildings are full in the industrial park.
Right, and that was something that we had said that was,
You had said something, and I think everyone had agreed that we should be reaching out to everyone, finding empty
Right.
spots and facilitating it. I know other towns, like Fairhaven, they push it out there on their websites all the time. And, you know, and they encourage like job fairs, and, you know, whenever anyone has any hiring events in town, they're putting it on their website to get more reach and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
such a
this is
win-win.
actually a committee that I would love to be on, but we do have an election coming up, so I don't know if we can approve the committee, wait to put it on, or, to see, what happens.
Well, you could always be a member at large as well.
True.
That wouldn't be dependent on it.
Right. Well, if there's
Well-
a select, if there's,
Well, if it has to be an open meeting, like you wouldn't be a representative of the select board and it's not a majority.
I think we've shied away from doing that, though.
Have we?
You'd be a casual.
How often is the policy committee met?
0.00 times.
Right, so you,
plus, I mean, we do have, you know, potentially, one new person or two new people, so I feel like.
I want to wait on it. But
Yeah.
is,
Prove the charge though.
we could approve the charge,
Yeah.
but not, right, because we'd have to fill it July 1st.
I was just gonna ask, I'm not, I could be swayed either way, but just for question, I mean, is there any benefit to having these be like 2-year terms and we stagger them? Cause it looks like it would be what, 6 members?
That was kind of my thought.
It's been that way
Why was it
every
1
year.
year?
Like, is this one where somebody being around, having knowledge is helpful?
I think so. I think that's a really good point.
I mean, what, does anyone, do you know, Lorraine, why, do you?
Nope, when
Was
when
it
this
a
was
1
formed,
year?
it was just, okay, we put that out there, and then one thing that we do as a community with our appointed position is we just assume that the people want to be appointed and we just roll it over,
Which is a bad
which is a bad practice, because I really think that
Plus, I
it's,
still think there's something to be said for attendance.
Yeah.
Folks,
yep, and that was,
Tracy used to keep the
that was
attendance
reviewed
record.
by the select board. They would ask, you know, for a attendance.
So can we change the charge to have a rolling, 3, 2, 1?
Yeah.
Well, what is it 5 members? I'm sorry, I can't count.
I think it's 5 members,
Yeah, it's
I mean, 2
And then 2
associate members.
associate members.
Oh, okay, that's what came in, right.
So maybe we just say 7 members, 5 regular members and 2 associate members.
Just leave it at 1 year. You know, you guys haven't met since 2017. Let's keep it low pressure.
But I mean, not for this conversation, but I think that people that are, that are appointed, there should be a form that we have, not to load down paperwork,
That
but
they're still
of letter of
interested.
interest.
Yeah, that they're
Because
still
what
interested.
happens is we appoint these
And
people
then they don't show up.
and then they don't show up to be sworn in, or they send their letter of resignation in, and we're back to with the open vacancy. So, did I do something funny? Oh. You
No.
like I said,
No,
oh,
it's just,
maybe it came out.
we lived it.
Yeah, so, I
Ton
think
of
we can,
resignations.
I think we can vote the charge. Keep it at the year, and we could always revisit,
Either way.
Brian, and rotate through.
And number 8 on the last page is new, correct? Is that new?
Yeah, it's new.
Okay. Which totally makes sense.
So are we going to decide who that official is now, or is that TBD? Like,
I would say it's TBD because it's going to be, I assume, me, but also like
oh, I
the town
wasn't. I was
planner.
thinking it would be the town accountant / finance director.
Yeah, it could be. It's going to be a number of people.
Sorry,
Well,
what's
I
the
mean,
question?
I
Number
guess we can look at
Well, I
it this
looked at
way.
that
It's
as, I'm sorry, I apologize. I thought number 8 was more like, depending on what they were working on, they might reach out to so-and-so or
got it.
so-and-so.
Yeah, like if it's an office, medical office building, of course, we'd want someone from the Board of Health, let's say.
And I
Or if
was-
it's a restaurants, or we'd want the Board of Health again,
Yeah, and I was looking at it like, who's gonna post our minutes? Who's going to, execute all this great stuff? So,
I think that could be a decision of the town administrator.
Right, because we have a pool of candidates that actually do record minutes. And plus, we're looking at through IT for AI minute taking.
Civic minutes.
Yeah.
It's the best one.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to
Civic
approve
minutes.
the economic development updated charge as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second discussion. Roll.
Baby and I.
Donahue, aye?
Carboni, aye.
Day aye.
All right, and so we'll appoint with the next round of,
Yep.
so we'll have to put out a letter of interest or request that we are gonna resurrect this year. Yay. All right, where are we? 15?
18.
18?
Madam Chair, are we gonna bring this back after the election? That's our first meeting?
For appointments,
appoint a
yes.
select-
Well, not the first meeting after the election, because we're going right into budget meetings.
The 14th, I meant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so we'll do all the subcommittee and liaison voting and all of that, so. 18, discuss and possible vote to accept the resignation letter from Eric Anderson from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So we do have a letter here. And this, does it say when it is in effect until? Is it immediate? I think it's immediate, right? Did I miss something? Did they go to Lil yet?
It's usually immediate if they don't put a date in it.
Okay. All right, well, I'll entertain a motion to accept the letter of resignation from Eric Anderson from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. I'd like to send a letter of thanks for participation.
How long's you been on the CBA? 3 years? 2 years?
I don't know.
Always hard when you see people with experience
Yep.
leaving.
Okay. Roll, please.
Baby and I.
Donahue, aye?
Carboni, aye.
Candido, I
Day aye.
have a question, Madam Chair, for Tracy. Tracy, do we have a list of people interested that we didn't use before for zoning?
No.
Okay.
I think they're like years old and I don't even know where they are, so we'll just go back out again.
All right, agenda item number 19. A resignation letter from Walter Healy from the Cable TV Advisory Committee. And Walter's been with us for quite some time. And it's effective immediately, so Walter's been he's been a mentor of mine when I was in the school committee back in 2000, so Walter has served the community for a very, very, very long time. So I will reluctantly entertain a motion to accept the resignation letter from Walter Healy from the Cable TV Advisory Committee.
So moved.
Second with discussion.
Yes.
Question for Tracy, if I may. I see 4 members on the webpage. Is that a full complement for that committee? An even number?
No, it's 5.
Okay, so, all right, so there's 2 open, they're barely at quorum then now. Not that there's any meetings coming, but it might be nice if we somehow represented like empty seats also, because I would look at this and think it's full. I don't know what the best way to do that is, but
On the web.
yeah.
So as people resign, we
Like
just
empty
need to get
position,
better
empty
at-
position, something.
just leave the spot, but just say vacant position.
Yeah.
Okay. And a letter as well to Walter. All right, roll.
Baby and I.
Donahue, aye?
Carboni, aye.
Candido, I
Day aye.
Okay, agenda item number 20. These are our subcommittee and select board delegate updates. Policy subcommittee. We have 2 draft policies that were submitted at the last meeting,
And did everybody have a chance to review?
Is this ChatGPT that did this?
Maybe.
I knew it from how it breaks it up.
Yeah, no, I had it, and then I'm like, ooh, let me get fancy with it. And then it had a bunch of ones next to it, and I'm like, Jesus. Well, and I use Perplexity, not ChatGPT. High end.
As long as it's not DeepSeek. Okay, so what is this?
I don't know.
Voting to accept.
No,
It's hard to break them, but they're mixed together, kind of.
I was just gonna note that we see policies come in a certain format. Not a run-on sentence.
Judgy.
Think of all the
That's your
paper.
civics classes doing, Lauren.
They're awesome, actually.
Listen, number 5, treat all members of the public and fellow officials with respect.
Amen. Thank you.
So we're approving this, checking it over.
Checking it over. This is the second
Yeah.
reading, and then the third one.
Let's just replace the safe links with the
You
real
don't like the safe
URL.
links.
Did this mimic mostly the other
Yeah.
values the other
It was
department heads put
it's
up
the other
together?
one, and it just went through.
Gotcha.
It looked good on my email, not so much when it came through. Does anyone have any specific objections to any of the lines?
So like down in, shoot, I lost it. What was it? Number 4, avoid using the position for personal gain. I mean, that's duplicative of the conflict of interest law.
No, conflict of interest law is monetary gain, I guess.
I think that's way too subjective, though. Avoid using the position for personal gain.
No
Because,
accepting Bruins tickets.
yeah, but
I don't think we
can-
can
You guys get
that
offered Bruins
specific.
tickets?
I haven't gotten offered anything, okay? So, so the problem with that is someone can file a disclosure in the clerk's office and continue to conduct their business, even if that means they're selling services, and so that is personal gain, so. And you can't tell someone
How about
not.
undisclosed personal gain?
I still think that's way too subjective. And we're supposed to have like ethics. Ethics is supposed to cover some of this stuff, so.
And then like, it's probably just in the wording, like the other interaction with officials and staff. Number 3, support board decisions once they're made, even if the individual member disagrees. Like, can I not vote against it at town meeting? Or is it, I mean, you don't want somebody to be like,
So a lot of these come from like the MMA documents, when it's talking about conduct for select board members. And one of the points specifically were like, sometimes select board members continue to debate after the fact, after the vote. And it becomes, ongoing and contentious. They bring it up every time and stuff like that. So not respecting the vote.
Right, but I
Okay.
didn't support that. Well,
Yeah.
that wasn't something I supported.
Yeah, every time.
I think
I told
you're,
yeah, they don't.
I think you're limiting people's like ability to express themselves, and I think you're also butting up on free speech, honestly. I mean, I could say it a million times. Well, I didn't vote for that. I mean,
So when the MMA says it,
I would question the MMA's.
Well, I think there's a difference between us saying I didn't support that, or I had different thoughts, so I didn't vote that way, versus like coming to a meeting and being like, I make a motion to bring up something we've already voted on. Like, I think
Right.
that I agree. Like, why would you bring something back again and again? And again?
And the
But-
chair has control to actually stop that type of conversation. I mean, if it gets to the point where any board member won't honor the chair's request, then that's a much bigger problem, but, And I mean, refrain from interfering with the administrative functions of the town or the professional duties of town staff. I mean, I think these are all way too, what's the punishment if someone does that?
Censure?
Really? I mean, to me, these are like antagonistic almost.
I don't know. I've seen a lot of overlap where select board members have gone and given specific direction to department heads, different than direction. Like, that shouldn't go on.
In the last year?
No.
There you go.
But
So
we're
why do
not-
we need a rule?
But we're not talking about this board this time. We're talking about ways to make sure there is a separation and there's appropriate behavior. And I will say, I've seen boards, not just this one, where there's tons of inappropriate behavior, and it usually centers around the town administrator role. Not the town administrators themselves, just overreach between the select board and town administrators, where the select board is acting on their own, independently.
So in this particular case, let's take Lakeville, for example. We went from having one type of town administrator to now trying to give the town administrator the more, you know, ability to do their job. That's a transition. We can't make a rule just because we were in a transition spot. I'd like to think that we see how it goes. And number one, I feel like you're really infringing on someone's First Amendment rights, so I can't, like, say to Andrew something like, I don't know if you should be doing that. I mean, to me, it's...
I think you're arguing a straw man on that. That's not obviously what this is for.
Well, I think you're trying to make a policy for some experiences in the past, and I just don't, I don't think it's necessary.
To line up with other communities that have done it as well.
Well, I mean, what about your own desire to be on a board and express your own opinions? Why are you on a board if you're limiting what you can actually do or say?
I don't think it's about say, if I can, I'm interjecting, but this is for everybody, all boards,
Right.
committees, and commissions, right? Even the appointed boards that we appoint, right?
Yep.
So
there
we're-
is also a handbook that we have. How does
Right.
this line up with that handbook?
Because there should be a certain behavior, I guess, amongst boards, committees, and commissions in Lakeville, right? I think that we
But
have.
like I said, we already have that code of conduct that covers all of these things. I think all this is
The
meant
code of
to,
conduct was for employees, was it not?
it was supposed to be for the entire town. The
Wasn't
one
the
that
code
the
of conduct,
department
what was it
heads
called?
had created.
ICMA standards, is that what we're talking
No,
about?
the one that that all the department heads created.
Right, that's not for boards and committees, that's for employees.
It was supposed to be for the entire town of Lakeville. That's what we were told.
And it was that one page with bullets. So.
Yep. So I just feel like, I feel like you're trying to limit the selectmen and what they can and can't do. And I don't know who's gonna, you know what? Every single person sitting on this board, maybe not Brenna, but every single one of the four of us have crossed every single one of these lines at some point, so. Okay, so.
What does that mean? Huh? I've never talked about privileged information in executive session outside of executive.
Okay, well, not that one.
Sure what
I'm
that
talking
means.
about the ones that we've been discussing. So where were we here?
That was an accusation.
Which one was the last one that we were talking about?
Interfering with
With the administrative
functions.
chain of command.
Well,
I've literally never asked the TA to do something.
so we are gonna bring this back for third.
So what there
I
was a
appreciate-
saying.
But I do, I appreciate like your honest feedback. I have no
I
issue
have
with it.
never walked into a department head's office and said, this is what we're gonna do, okay?
And
And I don't think anyone should, but I'm hard pressed to put a rule out there that says you can't. And like you said, what's the punishment? Censure? Now you're just handicapping the board too. That,
Could be recall now, depending how bad
right,
it is.
you have a recall now. There's always been a recall at the ballot box, but now you have a recall. So maybe people like strong selectmen. Why are you limiting
I don't
what?
find any of these characteristics of anyone breaking these to be strong selectmen.
Make decisions based on the merits of each issue, considering all available facts and public input. I was screaming for 6 months saying I wasn't getting enough information. A few of you were saying you were getting information, but then you weren't properly prepared to approve minutes. So clearly you didn't have information. So this, I just completely blew that out of the water. What is all available facts and public input? We could get a piece of information, I could get a piece of information walking in the room that the rest of you don't have. Does that mean that decision isn't valid? I just think this stuff is so subjective that you are trying to rule how the board can think, and you can't. I think you're trying to bind the hands of the selectmen, select board members, and I don't necessarily think that's what the residents want either. I know they don't want to see us bickering and fighting, but I think if someone who voted me in feels as though I think Andrew's having a bad day and I happen to cross an administrative line, I don't think they want to see me out. I think they want me to be checking in on the town administrator and making suggestions and. I just think this is a way to bind, to, basically take away what being a select board member is all about. And I don't agree with a lot of the stuff the ICMA hands out or, some of the MMA stuff. I think it's far too, hurting the position of elected folks. Why are we doing this if we're not even free to speak our mind, basically?
I don't know that any of these things say you're not free to speak your mind.
I see it differently, and right there is the problem, the interpretation. So you have 3 people on the board that see it one way, your way, and 2 people that see it my way. It doesn't mean any of us are wrong or right. It just means that we don't see eye to eye. Sometimes that's the best way to get work done, when you have differences of opinions. I think you're trying to control what the select board members can and can't do. And
Only the things they're not allowed to do.
we have ethics that cover that.
But they're I think it was Member Day's point, to what ends? I mean,
To what end? So you censure someone, so you take away all their power, so they just sit on the board. How is that representing the constituents?
No, a censure is a
A
voted
rebuke.
a rebuke of something somebody did. If we're referring back to like what the school committee did, that was 2 different. They censured and then went above and beyond and removed somebody's positions. Like censure's
Right.
usually
Oh, right,
just
that's
censure's
right.
usually just like, I don't like what you said. Now it's official.
yeah, like this was inappropriate.
Okay, but
Yeah.
they carried it one step further. Who's to say this board isn't gonna do the same? And now you are taking away,
But
someone who was
are
elected
you
to that
take away the
position.
freedom of the board to do that censure then, if you want to extrapolate on that? But then you'd be curtailing the board, to your point.
I just don't see that. Okay, these are far too subjective, so, and in fact, I went through every legal bill since last April, and I think we don't even need this whole utilization of town council. I mean, it would be nice to have a guideline, but to actually vote in a policy, I think that's wrong. I went through and checked out every legal bill. Do you know how infrequently the select board members actually have reached out to town council? Why are we making a policy for a problem that doesn't exist?
Well, it doesn't exist for you, is what you're saying? You don't think a problem exists? So for me, and the impetus behind this is a bunch of reasons. So if I may, when we have one member reach out to them, and then there's no record of what was asked, what was the result, and then one member has that information and the other members don't, that's a bad thing. It's a bad thing for everyone.
Right, but like I just said, it happened, I went through every single legal bill. It happens so infrequently. The most access to the lawyers by any select board member was exactly what I said the last time we talked about this, was the chair. And typically, it was the chair with the town administrator that they call, they find out, is this appropriate for an agenda? Is this not appropriate? What is the legality of this? What is, someone needs to make some of those decisions, and that, why aren't these a suggestion? Why are they a policy, is my point.
Well, prior to 2019, almost everything went through the town administrator. And then select boards just started reaching out, and bills kept piling in for select board members reaching out.
I mean, that's
with
not
questions.
necessarily a good time frame because there was no rule book for COVID. Right?
I don't know that that's
You
a
guys are
valid
trying to
argument.
make a policy just because of some bad experiences, but these should be suggestions. They shouldn't be policies. They should
You
be
guys-
suggestions.
I appreciate your input.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if this policy was in place, there was a zoning board of appeals meeting, and afterwards I asked Amy Questle, about a question about why they were allowed to push the 40B so much at LeBaron. And she basically explained the history of it and, the phases and all that. So this policy states that I would have been in violation for doing that, and it should have been in writing.
No,
Yes.
the response should be in writing. So Amy Questle, at the time after you asked, should give whatever she said to you, to Andrew, so he can put it in the policy board. So when you had questions like this in the future, there was the ability to not have to go to council in order to get some answers, because we have stacks of legal opinions that we could have in writing, but we don't, and it's like it's gone.
Did you ask her that question after the meeting? Or did you call her? Just,
No.
this is hypothetical, but I'm
I
saying.
mean, it was wrapping up. She was right at the table.
Oh,
so I
then
just,
It's still not charging.
I
but-
disagree. She still reached out on her own to talk to the lawyer. Why shouldn't she? She's a select board
Yeah,
member.
but why shouldn't we all know if there's something we should know?
But
Well,
now,
then
now
that's-
the suggestion would be that Amy should go home and bill us for her time to write that and email it in.
Well, is it gonna get billed then, or is it gonna get billed the next time someone asks about it?
Well, I'm just
'Cause-
saying like that would, if we want to do that, it's going to drive the cost up as long as everybody's okay with that.
So let's go back here, okay? So, Brian, I'm sorry I have to use you.
That's all right.
So when Brian reached out to town council to discuss the town administrator search, without including me in
Which
that
I reached out and you didn't
conversation.
respond to email. We tried, Lacey and I tried.
Okay, but still, you guys did it without me as the chair. So then I had to seek out and get the same exact information, right? I was upset about that, and all y'all were like, well, he needed the information, so it's okay when one person does it, but not someone else?
But you're
That's
just
what I'm
making a
saying.
case for a policy then.
These should be suggestions, because you know what? He had the opportunity with Lacey to get the information. I wanted to be there, I wasn't. I got it in a different way. Wasn't a perfect scenario, right?
But it's hard. It's hard when you don't know what the other person asked.
Right, exactly. And that's why, way back when, I loved the way Rita did it, and I love the way Andrew does it. They forward the question asked to legal counsel and the answer. Nothing is cut and pasted. I don't understand why you know, most of the time, I work through the town administrator. I think all year long, there were 2 times when I called town council on my own. Actually, it wasn't. I worked through Bob for that zoning issue on Main Street. When I was the chair and we had to ask questions, I would always ask the town administrator, can you please send a response to everybody? What happened, why we reached out, and what the question was, what the resolution is. You can't make a policy for that. And you know what? I don't care if you have these as policies. I'm not going to stop from going and asking a question because I have the opportunity, just because there's a policy. That's my point. Maureen, you're not going to do that either. If you have a question, you're going to ask the question, and you may say, you know, can you send the answer to everybody? You're not going to wait for her to give you an answer?
No, I don't know that that was implied, but if it is, I should rewrite it.
That's exactly what Brenda just said.
But the idea behind it is about
I
the
don't
response.
understand. You are so much about participating in your government and being a part of, you know, your community, but yet it's like you're trying to limit your own self to what you can and can't do. I just don't understand that. I never thought I never thought you would come up with these suggestions, well, these policies. I think they should be suggestions. But end of the conversation, we've talked about it way too much.
Well, I guess it'll be the end when I say it's the end.
Huh? No, I'm just saying that I can keep going all night, and I don't think that it's beneficial at this point, and we're not saying anything new.
So we brought this at the last meeting. This is the second reading on this. And we'll bring it back on the 31st for an official vote, okay, for adoption.
I had an actual comment, if that's okay.
Thank you.
On the, sorry, hold on, where did ChatGPT hide it? No, I honestly can't find it. It was in the town council one. How do we know if something is or is not costly? Like, I don't know if a question is gonna be.
Complex. Okay.
I don't know if it's gonna be like
Where is
a.
it?
In the middle, for complex or potentially costly
Yeah,
issues.
thank you, that area. Because I certainly don't know if a question is gonna be a 30-second response or a 30-page dissertation. I don't have an answer, but I just wasn't sure how to interpret that.
Yeah. I can see.
Because sometimes you ask a simple question like, whoa, didn't expect all that case law and everything else they pulled out.
In my head, I was thinking like 40D, like, you know, how does this work for the 43D permitting?
Yeah.
Like, you know, how is this whole thing working? You know, what's the legal opinion on it, et cetera? Something where someone would have to opine significantly. But to your point, sometimes legal opines significantly.
Yes.
I mean,
because they're opining.
I also think the town administrator or designated staff shall maintain a log of all requests to and responses from town council. I mean, the building department Board of Health reaches out to town council, planning reaches out to town council, lots of people.
I think they should keep the
Fire reaches
opinions
out
as well.
I know, but if you look at their bills, that's a pretty good summation. I mean,
I don't understand that comment, that it's a pretty good summation. You mean, it
when
tells.
town council sends the bill, it says who called, what the conversation was about, and how long it was.
Yeah, but that's not what the intent. The intent is to get the decision down so we don't have to reach out again.
So is it every board and committee and office, or is it just select board business? And where does select board business stop? I mean,
Like, should the purpose be town-wide or just select board?
I was just thinking select board because it was select board policy, but I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, why aren't we keeping all of these decisions? Why every 3 years when there's new members here, we have to reinvent the wheel? Like, we had a good book and it was tabbed out, and that we would say, oh, what's the subject? And then you'd read up on it and you'd be knowledgeable about the subject. And I know the idea of having, you know, whomever type it out and all of that, but you'd be surprised how many times people would come in the office and ask the same question, maybe in a different way, but they would be either able to not have to ask the question at all because it was answered, or they would have a frame of reference to ask different questions, which would really get them to their next.
I like resources like that. The other thing I would be curious on, and it might be worrying over nothing, is how often, if ever, do we run into a situation where the answer or opinion given at that time is been superseded and we don't know it, but we rely on what we have in the book?
But
like, how do you
everything is an opinion. Like, you know how legal is, where they're
Yeah.
like, oh, well, you know, that was the opinion of that time.
Right,
whatever.
or like there was some new case law or the MGLs change. It's, I
But
don't know,
that's-
do we get us into a circle where it's like, I think this is the answer?
No.
Well, let's reach out and find out again.
I don't think that came up very often. I
Okay.
think people were able to use it as a reference. And even if they ended up reaching out to counsel, it wasn't as involved as it would have been had they had to been
Start from
educated
scratch.
from the beginning on, you know, why this is this way, what laws cover it, et cetera, et cetera. Because to your point, laws change, they add new laws in every day to, you know, constrain things or move things forward or make sure things are working the way they're intended because the language was bad. But without that knowledge, we're all working from square one on a bunch of things, and I just find that to be a really bad way to leverage information.
Doesn't some of that come with continuity of like staff in the office? I mean, we have been such in a transition place, okay? It's like crazy.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong for continuity, but the problem is, like, if the staff doesn't know about the opinion, or they're not part of it, or they haven't read it, then continuity's not gonna make a difference because they haven't seen it. And I know you think it's constraining and all that. I just want to try to make things a little bit better for people.
I know, but I don't, and honestly, I don't think most of these make anything better. I think they limit what select board members can do, and not in a good way. So, I guess you'd have to ask your constituents, do they want their representatives to have some freedom to use their own judgment, or do they want people to be their hands tied by policies? So I'm not gonna take advantage of getting a quick answer from a lawyer just because they're standing there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, wait.
Madam Chair, in the interest of time, maybe we could
No, I'm
bring this back
Right,
later.
that's what
We're gonna- no,
I'm
it's
saying,
coming
that
back on the
I don't
31st.
even, yeah, I mean, it can be a majority vote at that time, but I don't,
How are we doing with our current policies?
I was very ill again, so not happy about that. But Maureen and I do have to get together, and I do have 3, like, red line copies to submit. That's up to you guys if you want to put them on the 31st, or we just wait at this point and,
Fridays are good for me if you have something we can
Yeah.
hash over.
Yep. What I really wanted to do was print out all the policies and put them in a binder, but I don't know, Brian, if you want it that way, or if you just want all the policies. And then there is a policy too that even kind of snuck up on me, like a building use policy that involves 2 buildings only in town that the select board has jurisdiction over allowing the use of. And my question is, why doesn't it include all the rest of them? So
I didn't know we
that,
had one.
yeah, I didn't even know.
Where'd that peak come from?
I honestly, I don't ever recall seeing that one, so.
I
Yeah.
thought you were gonna say that the school committee, because I
No,
know there's
no,
something
no,
there, but
no,
okay.
these, not school buildings I'm talking about.
it.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So.
I know, I mean,
That's like one policy that I didn't even realize is gonna need a whole lot of work just unto itself. And that one may have to be something that, Maureen and I have to reach out to staff for.
can you bring 2 on the 31st? Just pick 2.
Yeah,
And we can say,
yep, so right now I have,
is it the earth removal one?
no.
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 Okay.
So right now, I have a red line version of the ambulance billing policy, which I know Andrew has been working with the chief, right? You guys have been working, so that one's kind of timely. The chief did that. Chief Perkins, I believe, has the constable one, and then Lacey has the quarry, which a lot of the stuff in the quarry has been absorbed by like human resources. And then there's one other, I can't remember what the other one is, but that's sort of been absorbed by human resources too,
All right, so
so.
maybe there's
Have
4.
some time Friday
Yeah.
if you're
I
available.
won't be here.
You want Thursday?
Maybe the Friday.
Saturday?
No, I'm leaving Thursday first thing. I won't be back till Monday. But we can do it that following Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's all ready to go. And I just want you to read through and make your questions, and we can get answers from staff on them if you have them, and then go through the rest of them, Maureen, and I'll print the book out for you. I'll put it all in a binder, and that way we can pick out which other ones.
Okay. Because I know there's more that exist that we probably don't even have anywhere.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of them are, again, totally subjective, like the weather. We could probably bring that one up. Who's gonna call the weather? Is it the chair? Is it the town administrator? It's just, let's make a
It's the town
decision.
administrator.
Let's just make a decision here, you know? It's always been
It's
that
not
way.
driving into town.
Do we wanna change it?
Do
If
it
we
now.
wanna change it, how do we wanna change it? Plain, it's pretty, that one's pretty easy.
It's actually
too.
Franklin. Just
We could
saying.
probably.
It is.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just Franklin. Like, if anyone's knowing what the weather's doing and what the conditions are,
It's Mr.
Yeah.
Plow.
it's
Well, I mean, I beg to differ. Lorraine and I live on main drags. If there's no plows going by our houses, there's no one going to work that day. But that's probably not always gonna be the case. So,
All
I'll
right, good.
get those
Yeah, so
ready.
bring, bring the 4.
No, and you know what? We'll send them out. I'll have Andrew send them out
Okay,
after Maureen and I finish them.
okay, perfect. Okay, quick update on the Fire Station Building Committee. We did meet last Wednesday. A huge project of the pre-qualification. So I've learned a lot because I've not been part of that type of a process before, but it's earmarked to be able to go out on May 26th, I believe was the date that they said. So they have to pre-qualify all the contractors and because of the amount of the project.
Yeah, it's going out,
10 million, I think.
it's going out on Wednesday, it would be due back in April, and then good to go in May.
Then they have all the record keeping they're doing for that.
Oh, yeah.
And, because that was one of the things for the audit for the police station building. There was some missing.
Yeah, I have a similar question. Because are we supposed to keep all the procurement documents here too in town hall, or is just wasn't that what happened with the fire, with the police
Yeah, we
station
had to
building?
keep all of the documents for the next audit, and we were missing a small chunk. We found some stuff hiding up in
cupola?
accounting and something. Yeah, it was in the accounting office.
This
and
one,
stuff.
this one they're doing all digital, so it's gonna be easier to
That
record
is
keep.
much easier.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
What is CDs? It says CDs and construction administration.
Construction drawings.
Got it. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I was like, what?
They're not making us a playlist?
Mixtape.
No.
So, what's in front of us, because now that the project has been approved to move forward, this is phase 3, which is the construction, and the execution of the project. So, they called it a change order, and I kind of just said, it's not really a change order.
Contract
It's
amendment,
the
yeah.
extension of the contract. So through, we need to vote, the Fire Station Building Committee voted to recommend approval to the Select Board. So there's 2 here. One is for the Secosio Associates. And where is it? Let me make sure I'm on the right one. for the total contract for, $1,085,359. And then there's one for Pomeroy Associates. And I read this the other night too. Which one did I read wrong? So the contract price change would be $670,086.
All right, I'm confused.
So
I don't have anything from Pomeroy unless I'm
Yeah.
missing it.
Nope, the new contract price, including the change order, which you've already approved, some of it getting to this place. And then this is the difference.
The first one that says change order
I saw
form.
this and kept scrolling, sorry.
Right.
Okay.
So, because it's phase 3, I remember with phase 2, there was that whole thing about,
This one.
it went up to 500,000, but that
I
was
just
already
saw
planned.
Secoshio and kept going
So,
past it.
do we ever find that $70,000 by the way? Is that something? Anyway, so this is similar to that, or this is different? This is an unexpected increase, or this is expected and just?
It would be expected if upon the approval of the project going to the next phase.
So the
By the
contract,
town.
so the contract going from roughly 94,000 to 763,000 was anticipated in the money.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
And then in the second one, the 1,085,000, because I don't see the 21.4 moving. So it's just the number has been filled in.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
That number will not change.
Thank you, Brenna. Those are my questions too.
Yep, so that's the total.
Let's hope it changes based on bids coming in, but the
Oh,
total.
no, I mean, not, right, it won't go.
The ceiling won't change.
Right, the ceiling won't change. But I don't want to jinx it, so I don't want to say anything
No,
out
don't.
loud.
Don't.
but- Okay,
Don't do it.
all right.
Pomeroy managed
Already
the
enough
police
anxiety
station
over that
build
number.
exceptionally well, so we're in good hands.
Scare me.
I won't say it all. But there was, maybe you can go back and watch the fire station building committee, because there was some,
I did have one question, if I may, on the Secoshio one. The number doesn't bother me, it just says, where's the language? I already missed it. Or is it the Pomeroy one? The fee is lump sum will be billed on a percent completed basis. Like, who's determining percent completed?
where are you looking?
The change order form that was on
usually
March
the OPM.
3rd. It's the one that's from Pomeroy, with Taylor McDonald's signature.
Doesn't the
Usually the
contract
OPM.
spell it out, like, very specifically what
It may, I just
considers,
didn't know.
what is considered, whatever?
Design, build,
Yeah.
X
Right,
percent.
exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know why I remember that? Because that's how the contract was for the windows and doors, and it said at this phase, it's considered this,
Yeah.
and then at this phase, it's
So you weren't
considered.
front paying them, they had to hit
Yeah.
milestones basically for us to
Yeah, I think
pay
it
out.
was
And
spelled out
the
in the
milestones are
contract.
usually very specific to get.
And those will come to the fire station building committee for approval. And
Okay.
trust me when I tell you, they reviewed.
Do you have the whole committee reviewing them, or did you assign a
Nope,
bill
the whole-
review?
The whole committee approves.
Painful.
And then we
Okay.
have 3 people sign,
Okay,
but the committee, it's voted.
all right. It is an option for you though, if you want to have a
Right.
signing committee.
Right, and as the project progresses,
Because there's just
there
gonna be a
might be
lot.
more and more.
Yeah.
Because right now, there really wasn't many
Is
voices.
getting the whole group together is going to be challenging as we get through there.
Yeah, so that's why we designated the 3. So, all right. So entertain the motions. Tracy's looking, her eyebrows go up. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the, let's say, contract extension for you can tell I'm getting tired. Pomeroy Associates in the amount of $670,086. I think I just did this. And then the,
So moved.
so moved. And
Second.
do we- Second, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll please.
Katie and I,
Donahue, aye.
Carboni, aye.
Candida, aye.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then Secotio in the amount of $1,085,359. So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll. Fabian, aye.
Donnie, you aye.
Carboni, aye.
Candida, aye.
Yeah.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
Mr.
Yes.
Koshio, is that a contract extension or a change order?
Same thing.
Okay, thanks.
I meant to say same thing as the first motion. Contract extension.
Yeah, I hate the language they're using. It says
I know, 'cause I
increase.
was-
It's
No.
like, it's not an increase.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
Okay, Old Colony, how we doing?
No updates on my side. Their last meeting was the 19th, which I was not able to attend. I haven't had a chance to sync up with the superintendent since getting back from my time away.
But we do know that Andrew and the town clerk are going to the,
Yep.
I'm super curious about how that all works.
Where are you going?
Old Colony. There's like a breakfast tomorrow for like
Enjoy.
people. I know.
They've got good food,
To
enjoy.
talk about, yeah, remember he
Like,
said
ooh,
to
the
talk
eggplant
about
was
the
good.
election, how that's all gonna get done, right?
Yeah, I don't think they've decided how they're gonna do it, one day or the town meeting route.
I think they were talking like April or May, they'd make that decision.
Okay.
And I remember they have to pay for it if they do that, because we don't wanna
The
incur another.
election, yes, not a town meeting.
Correct.
Which is like, come on.
Yeah, yeah, $10,000.
Which, by the way, the financial impact from Rhino did not have Old Colony in there. It did not have Bristol Aggie, Norfolk Aggie. So,
No homework.
Okay. IT?
no updates. There was no meeting last month. We kind of said we'd meet every third Tuesday if there was business to discuss. That would be next Tuesday. However, I believe I'm at the Regional Finance Subcommittee meeting at the schools, so I don't know if there will be a meeting.
Okay, did you have a pretty good complement of the committee when you met?
The first meeting,
Yeah.
all but one members, yes. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Do you have to take minutes for that? Is
Yes.
it like an official?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And how are we doing with our community outreach?
I'll have those materials for the next meeting. And I will present them.
Sweet. And Citizens Academy, I have nothing to report on that at this time. We still, they rescheduled, but I forgot to look at the date.
Sometime in April, I think.
Yeah.
16th, maybe?
I just think that that particular session will have some really good information and what's working, what's not working.
Hmm.
Like I said, the panel that was involved is pretty well-versed.
Where was that? Newburyport? What was the panel? Malden? What town?
Danvers and there's two others. And I can't remember off the top of my head. Okay, is there any other new business coming before the board?
I have new business. I happened to be riding through, I don't know if it was Dedham or Milton or wherever today, and I saw they have a sign up on a sign that says Purple Heart Community.
Yep.
So I did a little research, whatever. I mean, if the board, if you don't know about it, it's like, the town has to accept being a Purple Heart status community, and then we can get a sign, so we can, because we definitely have Purple Heart
Quite a few.
recipients. So, so if the board is so inclined, maybe Andrew and the veterans agent can do some work on that. I think that would be wonderful.
This is sounding so familiar.
No, I think you're thinking of the flags, right?
No, it's definitely this.
I think it was before I started, but I think Christine asked about it, and they were waiting on some sort of state
This was just
confirmation.
recently, so I'm
Recent?
gonna have to go back in my memory banks, but yes.
Yeah, I saw that today and I'm like, ooh, wouldn't that be nice to have coming in and out of
Agreed.
Lakeville to see that? That's definitely,
Oh,
We can put it right above or beneath our right to farm sign.
Yeah.
If they ever show up.
I was
that's
just
hung up
gonna
with me right
say,
now.
hopefully it won't take 2 years to get it.
I think they picked one.
Make a purple
And I think
tractor.
it's
And we have the, I think we have to get the funding for it. It's just a matter of
You've already got a
ordering
sign
it.
this year. You'll get one in a couple.
I actually had one item for new business, kind of going along with what Leah had. I would like a veterans parking in front of our town hall. I think we talked about it one time and it was 2020 and nothing, nothing was going forward, but I would love to see a veterans parking spot.
I'm not even sure there's an exact,
The handicap one.
handicap spot.
It's a bucket with a sign and the bucket has migrated over into the middle of the
But the
road.
bucket doesn't necessarily, I don't know that it necessarily says handicap parking. Do you know?
It is, it's a handicap thing,
Okay.
but it's not next to a space any longer.
Right, it's
Someone has moved
moved.
it.
Yeah.
And it's not to the
Yeah.
right of the space. It's very weird, but yeah, we should probably,
We're supposed to have the handicap.
we really
Yep.
should.
Yeah.
And I'd love to have a veterans along with it.
Yeah.
If we're gonna do one the right way, we should do two.
And I
the
believe
right way.
our town administrator is our,
ADA.
coordinator.
Yeah, but the veterans agent may be involved.
Should we put him at the COA where the veterans agent is?
Action item.
Additional,
We can have more than one.
what's it, additional?
Taunton had a really cool space in front of their city hall, and they had like almost like a mural, like paint, with like a veteran, a flag. It was pretty cool. And it had like a sign that said "Reserved for Veterans."
Maybe we can have a contest. Maybe
Yeah.
someone would like to design that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I'll find out how they did it.
Tools, where's that sign?
Yeah, take it.
Tom,
Bring
what was
it.
your idea?
All right, does anybody have any old business? Okay.
Just the right to farm signs.
Every time I leave the meeting, I'm like, oh, I gotta look that up. Andrew, Tracy, that's an action item. Would you like nudge me tomorrow?
What? You want me to check on the status of the?
No, just nudge me tomorrow about the right to farm signs.
And I nudge her for you?
She's like,
Not till August
6th.
Tracy gentle, she nudges gently, so. All right, our next meetings, just for the record, March 31st, April 14th, at 5:45 here at the police station. The budget meetings are scheduled for Wednesday, April 9th, Thursday, April 10th, and Tuesday, April 15th, and those times will be determined. So, all right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:36 PM.
So moved.
Second, third.
Okay. Just
Maybe
roll, thank you.
Johnny, who I?
Carboni.